Hey there and welcome back. If you are settling in now, perhaps pulling the blankets a little closer, perhaps feeling the day begin at last to loosen its hold on you, then you have come to the right place. Tonight asks almost nothing of you. It asks only that you lie still, that the room around you grow hushed, and that you let your mind travel back across nearly 100 years and half a continent, until it comes to rest beneath the iron and glass roof of a railway station in Paris. On a cold blue evening late in the year 1929, there is a train waiting there at the platform, and it is no ordinary train. It is the most storied train that has ever run, the one whose name alone conjures up snow and candlelight and intrigue. It of midnight blue carriages lettered in gold that is about to carry 100 or so fortunate souls eastward into the night, across France, over the frontier, and on toward the mountains. And somewhere in the small dark hours of this night, while you lie sleeping in a bed that rocks gently with the running of the wheels, this train will gather itself and plunge into a tunnel bored clean through the heart of the Alps, 7 miles and more of blackness beneath the mountains and the snow, and you will go to sleep in one country and wake in another. We will come, in time, to that tunnel. For now it is enough to know that the evening is beginning, that the cars are gleaming under the lamps, and that a conductor in a brown and gold uniform is standing at the carriage step, waiting to hand you aboard. Before we go a step further, let me say a word to you directly, because you are out there somewhere in the dark, and I would like to think of you there. If these long journeys into other times and places are the kind of thing that helps you set the day down and drift toward rest, then you are welcome to subscribe, gently and with no fuss at all, so that the next of these evenings finds its way to you without your having to go and look for it. And I am always glad to know who is travelling with me through the night. Tell me, if you would like to, the place you are listening from, and the hour it is there, whether it is deep evening where you are, or past midnight, or some grey weekday afternoon when the world has worn you thin, and I will read what you write, and very likely write back. There are people listening tonight from cities it never reached, in lands its passengers never dreamed of, and there is something in that I find quietly lovely. All of us gathered here in the gloom to ride a carriage that ran before most of us were born. That is enough of the present age. The platform is waiting. Let us go back to it. Picture this. It is a little before 9 o'clock on a December evening, and you are standing beneath the roof of the Gare de Lyon in Paris, the great terminus from which the trains depart for the south and the east, for Lyon and Marseille and the Riviera, and tonight for places far beyond them. Above you spreads a vast canopy of iron and glass, dim now in the evening, the lamps hung beneath it throwing pools of yellow light down onto the platforms and the moving crowd. Off to one side rises the famous clock tower of the station, tall and golden-faced and lit from within, looking out over the city like the tower of some secular cathedral, and somewhere above your head, behind tall arched windows, the lamps of the station restaurant are burning, that gilded dining room with its painted ceilings and its mirrors where travellers take a glass before their journey. The air is cold and full of sound, the hiss of steam, the clang of a bell, a porter's call, the soft thunder of 100 conversations under the echoing roof, and beneath it all the particular smell of a great railway station of this age, coal smoke and hot oil and steam, and the cold night air drifting in from the open end of the train shed. And there, drawn up along the platform waiting, is the express you have come for. Come with me. We are going east tonight, the two of us, toward the mountains, and we shall sleep on the way. But let us begin a little before the platform, because the evening has a shape, and I want you to feel all of it. Half an hour ago you were elsewhere in Paris, in a hotel perhaps on one of the grand boulevards, and the lamps were coming on along the wet pavements, and the cafes were golden and full. You came down to a motor cab at the curb, your trunk strapped on behind, and you went rocking through the evening city toward the river, past the lit windows and the bare plane trees and the crowds going in to dinner. The whole of Paris settling into its long, pleasurable evening as you crossed it. You came over a bridge, the Seine running black and gleaming below with the lights of the city smeared along it, and then through the streets of the 12th arrondissement to the foot of that golden clock tower, and the cab set you down before the station, and a porter in a blue blouse took your trunk onto his barrow and led you in under the roof. And now here you are, among the crowd of departure, with the cold and the steam and the lamplight all around you, and the most famous train in the world drawn up and waiting at the platform's edge. Look at it before you board, because it deserves a long look, and there is time. It is it of sleeping cars, 6 or 7 of them coupled one behind another, and they are unlike any railway carriage you may have pictured. They are tall and steel-sided, and painted a deep midnight blue, so dark it is almost black in the shadows between the lamps, and glows a rich navy where the light falls full upon it, and along the side of each car, in gold leaf, runs lettering that names the company that owns and runs them, the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons-lits, the International Sleeping Car Company, and beneath the windows a row of small gold numerals and a gilded monogram, 2 letters entwined, the badge of the line. The roofs of the cars are painted white, or were white once, and are now soft grey with the smoke of the road, and the long rake of them gleams under the station lamps, blue and gold and white, sober and opulent at once, like a row of lacquered jewel boxes set on wheels. There is no third class here, no crowding, no plain wooden benches. Every car is a sleeping car. Every passenger has paid for a bed and a measure of quiet, and the carriage breathes a kind of expensive calm even as it stands. Toward the rear there is one car a touch different from the rest, its windows wider and warmly lit, and that, the conductor will tell you, is where you will dine. And there, at the step of your own car, stands the man who will look after you through the night. He is the conductor, the sleeping car attendant, and he wears the uniform of the company, a long brown coat trimmed and buttoned in gold, with the monogram on his cap, and he stands very correct and very calm beside the open door of his carriage, with a list in his gloved hand, greeting each passenger by name as they come, for he has the manifest of his car by heart, and knows exactly who is to sleep under his charge tonight. He is in his way the master of a small floating country, this one blue car and the dozen or so souls within it, and he will be awake the whole night through while they sleep, watching over them. And so it matters that he is the kind of man he is, unhurried, courteous, entirely unsurprised by anything, the sort of man who has seen kings and adventuresses and fugitives come up these steps and has handed every one of them aboard with the same level bow. He takes your name. He glances at his list, and finds you, and inclines his head, and gestures you up the single step into the carriage, and your porter passes your trunk up after you, and the warm wood-scented interior of it closes around you, and the cold platform and the steam and the crowd are suddenly somewhere else behind you, already half a memory. You are aboard. The inside of the car is a narrow world, and a beautiful one. You step up into a corridor that runs the length of the carriage down one side, carpeted in a deep soft pile that hushes your footfalls, lit by shaded lamps spaced along the panelling and along the inner wall. On your left, as you face the front of the coach, runs a row of polished doors, each one the door of a private sleeping cabin. But it is the walls themselves that stop you, for they are not painted, not papered, but panelled in wood, real wood, marquetry, the work of craftsmen, sheets of fine veneer inlaid in patterns, flowers and urns, and scrolling foliage and geometric borders, woods of many colours, honey and amber and chestnut and near black, fitted together so cleverly that the flowers seem almost to have grown there. The whole corridor glowing softly in the lamplight, like the inside of an expensive cigar box or the lid of an antique writing desk. Brass gleams everywhere. The wood does not, on the door handles and the window catches and the little fittings polished to a warm shine. The smell of beeswax hangs there, and cigar smoke and clean linen and something faintly floral beneath it. And there is a hush, a deep upholstered quiet, the sounds of the station coming muffled now through the double windows, so that already 2 steps inside the door, you feel yourself to have crossed out of the ordinary noisy day into somewhere smaller and finer and more private, a long jewelled corridor flying through the night, though it has not yet begun to move. The conductor leads you a few paces down the corridor and stops at one of the polished doors, and slides it open and stands aside to let you enter your cabin, the room that is to be yours alone for the length of the night. It is small, for space on a train is precious, but it is made with the cunning of a ship's cabin or a fine cabinet, every inch of it considered, nothing wasted. By day, as it is now, it is a little sitting room. There is a sofa along one wall beneath the window, upholstered in a soft figured plush, deep and inviting, wide enough for 2 to sit by day, though by night it will become your bed. The walls are panelled in the same glowing marquetry as the corridor, flowers and scrolls in inlaid wood, and there is a long mirror that makes the little room seem larger, and a folding table, and a shaded reading lamp with a small brass switch, and hooks for your coat, and a netted rack above for the lighter luggage. In one corner, behind a panel that folds cleverly down, there is a washstand, a basin of porcelain with bright brass taps and running water, hot and cold, and a glass and a carafe and clean towels on a rail, and a cake of the company's own soap, so that you may wash and freshen yourself in the privacy of your own room. The window is wide and clear, with a blind and a curtain of heavy cloth that can be drawn against the night. And through it, for the moment, you can still see the platform, the porters, the lamplight, the last passengers hurrying aboard. The conductor shows you the switches and the bell and tells you that dinner will be served once the carriage is away, and that he will make up your bed whenever you should wish it, and then he withdraws and slides your door closed, and for a moment you are alone in your small glowing wooden room, with your trunk stowed and the lamp lit and the cold blue evening pressing at the window, waiting for it to begin to move. There is a particular romance on a train like this in the matter of luggage which you may never have thought of as romantic before tonight. Down in the van at the rear, and stowed in the racks along the corridors, are the trunks and cases of all the travellers aboard, and on a line such as this one, a great many of them are works of travel in their own right. Stout leather cases and great domed trunks come plastered over with the gummed paper labels of the journeys they have already made, the names of grand hotels in a dozen cities, the crests of shipping lines and rival expresses, the harbours and capitals and mountain resorts of a whole wandering life recorded in faded coloured paper on the side of a single trunk. The conductors and the porters handle them with the gravity such things deserve, knowing which case belongs to which sleeper, which must be got at in the night, and which may stay buried until morning. Your own quieter luggage has joined that travelling company now, stowed and counted and labelled, and it will be there, brushed and waiting, when the morning sets you down in the south. It is one more thing you need not give a thought to tonight. A well-travelled trunk is a kind of autobiography, if you know how to read the labels, and the man who carried it down to the van could read a good few of them at a glance, and thought nothing of it, for he has handled the luggage of half the wanderers of Europe. It is being looked after now, like everything else aboard the blue train, and like you. Let me take you back a moment to the roof of the Gare de Lyon, the station you have just come through, because it is part of the night's enchantment, and it has a character all its own among the great termini of Paris. It was built at the turn of the century for one of the world's fairs that Paris loved to hold in those years by the railway company that ran the lines to the south, the company whose trains went down to Lyon and Marseille and the warm coast of the Mediterranean, and it was built to impress, to send the traveller off toward the sun in a fitting frame of mind. The clock tower that rises above it was meant to recall the famous bell tower of a famous square in Venice, and it stands above the roofs of the quarter, golden-faced and lit, a landmark across the eastern city, so that all through the district people set their watches and order their evenings by the tall glowing clock of the Gare de Lyon. Beneath it, the express shed spreads its canopy of iron and glass over the platforms, vast and dim and echoing, and the whole place has the grand confident air of an age that believed in railways the way an earlier age believed in cathedrals, that built its stations as temples to movement and distance, and the romance of going away, and the returns. And up there, above the concourse, behind the tall arched windows where the lamps are burning gold, there is the station restaurant, which is itself one of the sights of Paris and worth a glance up at as you cross beneath it. It is a vast and sumptuous dining room in the most elaborate manner of the age, its ceilings painted from edge to edge with scenes of all the sunlit places the trains of this station can carry you to, the harbours and the hill towns and the blue coasts of the south, framed in gilt and garlands, its walls panelled and hung with great framed canvases, its tables laid with white cloths beneath wide chandeliers, so that a traveller, with an hour to spare before a southbound train, may sit in that golden room beneath the painted ceilings, among the painted harbours and the soft lamplight, and take a fine dinner or only a glass of something, and feel the journey beginning before ever it is boarded. Many a traveller bound for the Orient Express has dined up there first, looking down through the tall windows at the platforms and the steam and the gathering crowd, prolonging the sweet anticipation of departure, and the glow of those windows over the concourse is part of the atmosphere of the place, a promise of the luxury to come. The city beyond the station has been settling all evening into its long Parisian night, and you carry the feel of it in with you as you come to the platform. Paris in this year is the bright capital of the pleasure-loving world, the city to which everyone who can manage it comes to spend their money and their youth, its cafes and its theatres and its dance halls blazing with light, its boulevards full of motor cars and evening crowds, the great lit sign of a famous tower standing over the rooftops to the west. It is a city of artists and exiles and expatriates, of writers in the cafes of the left bank and dancers in the halls of Montmartre, of fortunes made and lost and spent, living hard and brightly in the long valley of years between one war, and though no one yet knows it, another. And out of all that light and movement, out of the dinner parties and the theatres and the lamplit streets, a certain number of people detach themselves each evening and make their way to the grand stations to be carried away into the night, and the most fortunate and the most adventurous of them, the ones bound for the mountains and the east and the fabled cities beyond, make their way here to the Gare de Lyon beneath the golden clock, to the platform where the blue train waits. You are one of them tonight. You have left the bright city behind you at the doors of the station, and ahead lies the dark and the distance and the long rocking journey east, and between the one and the other stands the blue and gold train, gleaming under the lamps, the threshold between the lit world you are leaving and the night you are about to enter. Let me hold the city a moment longer before the carriage takes you from it, the Paris you are leaving on this winter evening, for it is worth saying goodbye to properly, and the leaving of it is part of the sweetness of the going. It is a cold, clear evening in December, the kind of evening when the lamps seem to burn brighter and the city draws itself in toward warmth and light, and Paris is at its most beautiful and most alive. The boulevards are wet and shining, throwing back the lights, and the great cafes along them are golden caverns of warmth behind their glass, crowded and loud, the waiters in their long aprons weaving between the marble tables. The theatres are letting out their first crowds or taking them in, the women in furs against the cold, the men in evening dress, the breath of the crowd hanging in the lamplight. The bridges over the river are strung with lights, doubled in the black water below. Away to the west, the great iron tower stands floodlit over the rooftops, and on the hill to the north the white domes of the basilica float pale above the glittering city. It is the capital of pleasure and of art, of the good life pursued with more skill and more devotion than anywhere on earth, and on a cold, bright evening like this one it seems to know it, and to glow with the knowledge. And you are leaving it, tonight, by the most romantic of all the ways of leaving, on the blue cars into the east, and there is a particular sweetness in leaving a beloved city at the height of its beauty, by night, bound for somewhere far. To leave Paris is always a small heartbreak, for it is a city that makes you feel you are leaving something irreplaceable, some brightness you will not find again, and to leave it by night, on it bound for the mountains and the east, sharpens the feeling to something almost like grief and almost like joy at once. You carry the city with you onto the coach, the last sight of its lights, the warmth of its cafes still on your skin, the sound of its streets still in your ears, and as it pulls out and the city falls away into its glow on the clouds, you feel it go, the bright beloved place sinking behind you into the shadow. And the feeling is not all sorrow, for ahead lies the journey, and the mountains and the morning in a new land, but it is not all joy either, and the mixture of the two, the sweet sorrow of the leaving, is one of the truest feelings of travel, felt most keenly when one leaves a place one loves at its loveliest by night, on a carriage into the dark. But the city in the end is only the threshold, and the journey is the thing. And as the last lights of Paris sink behind the express, you feel the sorrow of leaving give way, by degrees, to the deeper pleasure of being underway, of having left, of being carried out into the dark toward the unknown country ahead. The city is behind you now, and there is nothing to be done about it, and in that finality there is release, the same release the traveller always feels when the leaving is finally done and the journey has truly begun. The lights are gone. The black country is opening. It has found its stride and runs steadily east, and you are aboard it warm and settled, with the whole long glittering night ahead, and the beloved city you have left will still be there, waiting, lovely, whenever you choose to return to it. And meanwhile there is the journey, the blue train, the blackness, the mountains far ahead, the morning in another land, and the deep sweet pleasure of being carried away into the night toward all of it. The city's lights fading behind, the adventure of the murk opening before, and you suspended between the two, in the warm rocking refuge of the train, going east. Before the express pulls out, let the platform itself work on you a while, for the minutes before the departure of a great express are among the richest in all of travel, charged with a particular excitement that nothing else quite matches, and the platform of the Orient Express on a winter evening is a stage on which the whole drama of departure is played. Steam drifts along the platform, lit gold by the lamps, curling up into the dark of the roof. Porters hurry past with their barrows piled high with the luggage of the wealthy leather cases, and hat boxes and steamer trunks plastered with the labels of grand hotels in distant cities, the very luggage telling you that these are people who go to far places and stay in fine ones. There are little knots of people saying their farewells along the length of the carriage, and the farewells are more serious here than on an ordinary train, for this carriage goes a long way into the east toward places from which one does not simply pop back, and there is a wait to the leave-takings, an embrace held a moment longer, a hand pressed, a last word at the carriage step. Flowers are being carried aboard, great bunches of them sent to see a traveller off, and the scent of them mixes with the steam and the coal smoke and the cold. The conductors stand at their doors in their brown and gold, and over it all hangs the sense of imminent departure, of a great machine about to gather itself and leap away into the night, that makes the heart beat a little faster, even in the breast of one who is only watching. There is no feeling quite like the one that comes in the last minute before a long train pulls out, when you are aboard, settled, your luggage stowed, and there is nothing left to do but wait for the off. All the bustle of arrival and boarding is behind you. The decisions are made, the ticket bought, the cabin found, the trunk stowed. You have committed yourself to the journey irrevocably, and in that commitment there is a deep settling of the spirit, a letting go of everything you are leaving behind, for it is too late now to do anything about any of it, too late to go back, and the only way left is forward, into the night, toward the mountains. You sit in your cabin, or stand at the window looking out at the platform, and you feel the journey gathered ahead of you, unspent, the dinner not yet eaten, the mountains not yet climbed, the sleep not yet slept, all of it waiting, and the anticipation of it is almost the sweetest part, sweeter sometimes than the thing itself, the pure forward-leaning expectancy of the traveller poised at the very lip of a great journey, everything ready, nothing yet begun. And then the moment comes, the whistle, the answering call from the engine, the first almost imperceptible movement, and the anticipation breaks like a held breath let go, and becomes motion, becomes journey, becomes the thing itself at last. The platform begins to slide. The waving figures begin to fall behind. And you are away, committed wholly now to the night and the distance, the city you are leaving already sliding into the past, the black country and the mountains and the morning all rushing toward you out of the future, and the awaited journey, so long anticipated, so sweetly poised, is finally and irreversibly begun. There is a kind of joy in that breaking of the anticipation into motion that is one of the purest joys of travel, the moment the wheels first turn, the moment the platform first slides, the instant the going away becomes real, and you feel it now, in the dark, as the blue train eases out of the grand station and gathers its long body together and sets its face toward the east, and you settle back into your seat with the whole night ahead of you and the city falling away behind, and let the journey take you. The last minutes before a famous train departs have a charge to them that you can feel through the floor and the walls, even sitting still in your cabin, and you feel it now. Out on the platform, the final business of leaving is going forward, the last trunks handed up, the last farewells, a porter running with a forgotten hat box. Doors close along it, one after another, with a soft solid sound, muffled by the panelling. The conductor's voice comes faintly from the corridor, courteous and low, settling the last of his passengers. Somewhere ahead, far up at the head of the coach where the locomotive stands hissing in the dark, a whistle sounds, thin and clear, and is answered by a deeper note. And then, very gently, so gently that for a moment you cannot be certain it is happening, the platform beyond your window begins to slide. There is no jerk, no lurch. The sleeping cars are heavy and beautifully sprung, and they take up their motion like a boat easing off from a quay, and the lamplit platform drifts backward, slowly at first, the porters and the waving figures gliding away, the great clock tower wheeling past the window with its golden face lit against the dimness, and then the roof of the station slips back over the top of the glass and is gone. And there is the open night above, the cold sky over Paris, and the carriage comes out of the Gare de Lyon into the dark and begins its long run east. The lights of Paris fall away on either side as it gathers itself, the lit windows of the tall apartment houses, the glow of the boulevards reflected on the low cloud, the bare trees along a street going by below an embankment, a bridge, a glimpse of the Seine again with the whole city smeared in light along its black water. The express crosses the river and runs on through the eastern districts of the city, slowing over points, the wheels beginning their soft rhythmic beat beneath the floor, that gentle double knock that will rock you to sleep before the night is old. Goods yards slide by, lit yellow and empty. A suburban station flashes past, its platforms bright and deserted. And then, by degrees, the lights begin to thin, the houses to fall apart into gardens and the gardens into fields, and the glow of Paris sinks behind you into the night sky, and the windows go dark but for your own reflection and the lamp of your cabin hanging in the glass, and you understand that the city is behind you now, and the open country of France lies ahead, black and rolling and dotted here and there with the single far lights of farms, and that the journey has truly begun. There is no need to sit alone in your cabin, though, however lovely it is, for the night is young and dinner is waiting, and the whole journey is open to you to walk through. Like the famous expresses everywhere in this age, the cars are joined end to end by enclosed gangways, sealed against the weather, so that you may pass from one carriage to the next without ever stepping into the rushing cold, and the sleeping cars and the dining car together make one long connected world that you are free to wander. So come out of your cabin with me. We slide the door back, we step into the carpeted corridor with its row of unlit windows on one side and its glowing marquetry on the other, and we turn toward the rear of it, toward the warm light of the restaurant car, and we begin to make our way down the swaying train, one hand resting light on the polished brass rail that runs along the panelling at exactly the right height for steadying a walker. A good spiritor. The corridor sways gently underfoot as you go. The cabins passing on your left, most of their doors closed now, a low murmur of voices behind one, the click of a latch from another, and through the dark windows on your right there is nothing to see but the night, and your own reflections sliding along the glass, and now and then the far yellow spark of a farmhouse window away across the invisible fields. At the end of the car you come to the gangway, the floor plates shifting and grinding underfoot, the rush of the wheels coming up loud for a moment through the join, the cold breath of the night air finding its way in around the canvas, and then the door of the next car slides to behind you and the hush returns, and you pass on through another sleeping car, and another, the same glowing corridor, the same closed doors, the same deep carpet, until ahead of you there is a brighter light spilling out into the corridor, and a different quality of sound, the chink of glass and silver, a ripple of low laughter, the warm murmur of people at table, and you come to the door of the restaurant car and slide it open and step through, and stop, because it is the most beautiful room you have yet seen on it, and one of the most beautiful you have seen anywhere. It is a long, low, glowing room, snug after the cool of the corridors, and it is decorated with a richness that the plain word restaurant does not begin to cover. Down each side runs a row of tables, each laid with a cloth of heavy white damask that falls in stiff folds and does not stir, each set with the gleaming apparatus of a fine dinner, the silver and the crystal and the folded napkins standing up like little white sails, a shaded lamp on every table casting a pool of rose-gold light, and a single flower in a slim vase. The chairs are deep and upholstered and freestanding, drawn up to the tables as they would be in a good restaurant on solid ground. But it is the walls that take your breath, for set into the panelling between the windows down the length of the car are panels of moulded glass, frosted and figured, glowing softly from concealed lights behind them, and in the glass, sculpted in low relief, are figures, graceful nymphs, and clustered grapes and flowering vines and draped classical maidens, the work of the great glass artist, whose name the company is so proud of, the panels catching the lamplight and holding it in their frosted depths, so that they seem lit from within, like panels of pale ice with shapes frozen in them. The ceiling above is worked and gilded. The lamps glow. The crystal on the tables trembles very slightly with the running of the carriage and throws little points of light around the room. And beyond the wide shadowed windows, France is rushing past unseen in the night, so that the bright, warm, jewelled room seems to hang suspended in a flying darkness, a lit casket of warmth and light and good food racing east through the cold and the night and the sleeping country. A steward in a white jacket, immaculate, moving with the sure-footed ease of a man who has served 1,000 dinners on a moving train, comes to greet you and leads you to a table, and draws back the chair and you sit, and the white cloth is before you, and the lamp glows at your elbow, and the Lalique glass shines softly along the wall, and the steward unfolds your napkin across your lap with a small practised flourish, and presents you with the menu of the evening. And you settle back into the deep chair, in the warmth and the light, with the silver and the crystal laid out before you, and the night flying past the glass, and you feel the particular happiness that this train above all others was built to give, the happiness of being carried in rich comfort and greater style through the dark of the world, fed and warmed and looked after, with nothing to do and nowhere to be, and the whole long night of the journey lying ahead of you like a gift not yet unwrapped. This is what they came for, all of them, the people in this glowing car, the famous and the rich and the merely fortunate. Not merely to be taken east. To be taken east like this. There is a thing worth understanding, as you sit there waiting for the first course, about what kind of place it is, because it is not quite like any other conveyance in the world. It is a hotel, in effect, one of the finest small hotels in Europe that happens to be moving at 50 miles an hour through the night. Everything that a great hotel offers, it offers. There is a chef and a kitchen and a cellar of wine. There are servants who know your name and your wishes. There is fine linen and good silver and crystal and flowers. There is warmth and quiet and privacy, and the deep pampering attention of a trained staff whose whole concern is your comfort. And all of it has been fitted by great ingenuity into the narrow swaying compass of a row of railway carriages and set running across a continent, so that you may have all of it, the dinner and the wine and the bed with its clean sheets and the servant at the door, while the mountains and the rivers and the frontiers of Europe slide past unseen in the blackness outside. It is one of the small marvels of the age, this notion of the hotel that travels, the idea that a journey need not be an ordeal to be endured between two comfortable places, but might itself be the most comfortable place of all. And the coach you are riding tonight is the supreme expression of that idea, the one that did it first and did it best, and gave its name to the whole dream of luxurious travel. And now the steward is coming back with the first of the dishes and a bottle under his arm, and the dinner is about to begin. In the first hour out of Paris, before dinner is called, there is time simply to sit in your cabin and let the journey settle around you, and it is worth giving yourself to that hour, for it has a particular flavour that comes only at the beginning of a long night's travel. The city is gone now, fallen behind into its glow on the clouds, and it has found its stride and runs steadily out into the dark country, the wheels settled into their rhythm, the cabin warm, the lamp lit, and you sit on the plush sofa that will later be your bed by the window and watch the last of the inhabited land go by. There are still lights out there for a while, the lit windows of houses near the line, a village street lamp, the headlamps of a motor car on a road running parallel for a moment and then peeling away, the lit clock of a church tower in a town, the express skirts, and then by degrees they thin and fail, and there is only the dark, the deep country gloom of France at night, with the far rare light of a solitary farm hanging in it, and your own warm reflection floating on the glass over the top of it all. It is a curiously complete feeling, that first hour in the cabin, the feeling of having gathered yourself into a small, safe-moving refuge, and pulled the door to against the world. Everything you need is here within reach. Your luggage is stowed, your coat is on its hook, your book is on the table, the bell is by your hand if you should want anything, the washstand is behind its panel, the bed waits folded in the sofa beneath you. The cabin is yours, wholly yours, a private room of your own flying through the night, and there is a deep satisfaction in its compactness, its completeness, the way it holds everything needful in so small and so well-ordered a space. People feel it who would never have expected to, this pleasure in the small perfect cabin, the same pleasure a child feels in a den or a treehouse, the pleasure of the snug enclosed space that is one's own, the world shut out, everything to hand. And it is one of the quiet joys of the sleeping car, felt most keenly in this first hour, while the novelty is fresh, and the cabin still new to you. And there is the pleasant knowledge, as you sit there, of the whole night still to come, the dinner ahead, the bed waiting, the mountains far off in the dark, the long sleep, the morning in another land, all of it still unspent, still ahead, the journey barely begun. You need not hurry to any of it. You can sit here in the lamplight as long as you like, watching the lightless country go by, feeling it carry you, savouring the beginning of things before you rise and make your way down to dinner. Or you can ring for the conductor and have him bring you something, a drink, a word about the journey, and settle deeper into your corner. The hour is yours to do nothing in, and doing nothing in a warm-lit cabin on it running out into the night with a good dinner and a soft bed ahead is one of the finest things a person can do with an hour. So sit and watch, and let the last lights of the inhabited land go by, and feel the dark country open around the train, and let the first sweet hour of the long night unfold at its own unhurried pace, with everything ahead of you, and nothing yet behind but the city and the day, both of them falling away now into the gloom with every turn of the wheels. And there is, in that first quiet hour, the pleasant knowledge of the little bell by your hand, the small button or handle that summons the conductor, for it is a curiously reassuring thing to know that you have only to press it, and the calm man in the gold-trimmed coat will appear at your door within a minute, ready to bring whatever you might want or answer whatever you might ask. You may never use it. Most of the night you will want naught, or want only to be left in peace to sleep, which is itself a kind of service. But the bell is there, and the man is there at the end of the corridor, awake and waiting, and the mere knowing of it changes the whole feeling of the night, for it means you are not truly alone in the dark, crossing the strange country, but held within a web of quiet attention, looked after, your smallest comfort somebody's care. It is the difference between camping out in the wild and lying in a good hotel, that web of unseen attendants, and the night train wraps you in it from the moment you board, so that even in the loneliest reach of the gloom, miles from anywhere, high in the cold mountains, you have only to lift a hand and warmth and help will come, and the knowing of that lets you give yourself to sleep the more completely, as a child sleeps the more soundly for knowing a parent is near. A word about the wine, and the whole art of the table on this carriage, for the dining car of the Orient Express was famous across Europe, not merely for its setting, but for what was set upon its tables, and the gastronomy of the line was a serious matter, tended with real care. The company understood from the beginning that a traveller paying for luxury would judge it above all by what he was given to eat and drink, and so it set out to make its dining cars the equal of fine restaurants on land, and largely succeeded, which was no small thing given the cramped and swaying kitchen in which it had to be done. The meals ran to many courses, in the full manner of the age, and they were not the same night after night, but changed with the journey, for the express took aboard fresh provisions along its route, the best of each country it passed through, so that the cooking reflected the lands the carriage was crossing, fish from one country and game from another, the cheeses and the fruits and the delicacies of each region gathered as the blue cars rolled through it. A traveller crossing Europe on it ate his way across it too, the dishes shifting under him as the frontiers slid by, a moving feast that was itself a kind of journey through the tastes of the continent. And the wine was chosen to match. It carried a cellar, a stock of bottles stowed and racked against the motion, and the wines were good ones, French clarets and burgundies and champagnes, the wines of the Rhine and the Moselle, the wines of Italy as the coach ran south, poured by stewards who knew them, and named them as they poured. There was champagne for those who wished to mark the beginning of a journey, or simply to drink it for its own sake, the cork drawn with a soft sound and the pale gold poured foaming into the tall glass, the bubbles rising as the dark country flew past the window. There was a good wine for each course, the steward suggesting, pouring, refilling, the bottles breathing on the white cloth in the lamplight. To dine well and drink well while being carried in warmth through the night across a sleeping continent is one of the great pleasures the world has ever devised, and the Orient Express devised it more completely than anyone, so that the dinner aboard was not a thing grabbed in haste between two places, but an event in itself, lingered over, savoured. One of the chief reasons a traveller chose this train over the plainer, faster ways of getting east. There is a deep and ancient comfort in being fed well at the end of a day, a comfort that goes back to something very old in us, the gathering in from the dark and the cold to warmth and light and food, the table laid, the company close, the night shut out beyond the walls, and the dining car of the night express gives that comfort in a peculiarly perfect form. For the shadow and the cold and the wild country are not merely shut out beyond the walls, but are flying past a few feet away on the other side of the glass, so that you taste the warmth and the safety, the more keenly for seeing the unlit world rushing by, that cannot touch you. You sit in the lamplight with the good food before you and the wine in your glass and the steward at your elbow, and beyond the window the night and the fields and the mountains of Europe stream past unseen, the cold pressing at the glass, the dark immense, and you are warm and fed and carried, and entirely safe within the bright bubble of the car, and the contrast sharpens every pleasure of the table to a fine point. It is the oldest human ease, warmth and food against the night, served here in one of its most refined and most romantic forms in a jewelled room flying east through the shadow, and it is no wonder that those who dined here remembered it all their lives. The dinner, when it comes in the slow and stately procession of courses that the great dining cars of this company are famous for across all of Europe, for the kitchens of the wagons-lits are held to be the equal of fine restaurants on land, and the reputation is guarded jealously and earned afresh every night. It begins as such dinners do with something to wake the appetite, a little dish brought cool and elegant from the kitchen, and a glass poured to go with it, the steward naming the wine in a low voice as he pours, the pale gold of it catching the lamplight as it rises in the glass. Then a soup, carried the swaying length of the car in a wide, shallow plate, without a drop spilled, the steward timing the roll of the carriage so that the plate comes level to the cloth at the very moment the car is steady. Then a course of fish, and then the main business of the meal, a dish of meat with its sauce and its vegetables handed round from a silver platter, carved or served at a side table by a steward, who braces himself against the motion as easily as a sailor and never once falters. The plates are hot. The sauces are exact. The wine is poured and poured again, a different bottle perhaps for the meat, red now and deep, breathing its scent up into the warm air of the car. And between the courses there is the slow pleasant lull of a good dinner, the lamp glowing, the glass trembling its little points of light, the murmur of the other diners rising and falling, it rocking on through the murk, and you sit in the warmth with the food and the wine spreading their slow contentment through you and feel more and more with each course the cares of the daylight world dissolving and falling away behind the express into the night. It is worth your knowing, as you eat, where all this is coming from, because it is being produced in conditions that would defeat most cooks on solid ground. Somewhere at the end of this car, behind a door the diners never pass through, there is a kitchen, and it is one of the smallest in which serious cooking has ever been attempted, a narrow galley a few feet wide, hot and cramped and swaying, with a coal-fired range, in which one chef and an assistant or two produce, in a single evening, full dinners of many courses for an entire carriage of demanding travellers, each course timed and dressed and sent out exact. The chef works braced against the motion, a cloth to hand, his pans guarded with rails so that nothing slides into the fire on a curve, his knives stowed the instant he is done with them, judging the swing of it as he plates each dish so that the sauce stays on the plate and not on the wall. The heat in there is fierce, the space cruel, the hours long, and the standard he holds himself to is the standard of a grand restaurant that has the luxury of standing still on the firm earth. The diners in the glowing car, among the lamplit glass and the white linen, see nothing of him. They see only the steward arriving smoothly at the elbow with another perfect plate, and the night flying past the window, and that is exactly as the chef would wish it, for his pride is in the seeming ease of a thing that is in truth extraordinarily hard, the conjuring of a fine dinner out of a swaying box of heat and steam hurtling through the dark. And there are the others who serve, besides the chef, a whole small staff bent on the comfort of the 100 souls aboard, and most of their work is done where you cannot see it. The stewards in the restaurant car, moving all evening up and down the rocking aisle with their trays held high, the conductors in the sleeping cars, one to each carriage, who will be awake all night while their passengers sleep, watching the corridor, tending the heating, guarding the door, ready at the touch of a bell. The men who loaded the carriage before it left, the provisions and the wine and the fresh linen and the coal and the ice, everything that a travelling hotel will need for a journey of days got aboard in the hours before departure, for the coach cannot send out for what it lacks. There is a hidden economy of labour beneath the smooth surface of the night, a whole crew of people giving their work and their wakefulness to the ease of strangers, and the strangers, drowsing now over their coffee, need never think of it, which is the measure of how well it is done. To be looked after this completely, so smoothly that you forget you are being looked after at all, is one of the rarer luxuries in life, and it provides it as a matter of course, all night, mile after mile, while the country sleeps and the wheels turn, and the conductors keep their patient watch in the swaying corridors. Look around the car while the coffee is brought, at the company you are keeping tonight, because the people who ride it are part of its legend, and a glance down the dining car is a glance at a certain slice of the world of this age. The Orient Express and its sisters have carried, in their time, very nearly everyone whose name was worth knowing, and the romance of the Express is bound up with the romance of its passengers. There are kings aboard trains like this one, travelling to and from their thrones, and exiled kings travelling away from thrones they have lost. There are diplomats with locked dispatch cases, carrying the quiet business of nations east and west across the frontiers. There are financiers and industrialists, and famous beauties of the stage, and writers gathering material, and here and there, it is whispered, a spy or two, for a train that crosses so many borders carrying so many important people is a natural haunt of those whose trade is secrets, and the line has earned its reputation for intrigue honestly. At the tables around you tonight you might catch 6 languages in the murmur, French and English and German and Italian, and the harder consonants of the Balkan tongues, the talk of people bound for 12 different cities along the line, drawn together for this one night in this one glowing car, strangers passing in the dark, each with a destination and a reason of their own. It is a small floating society, the dining car of the Orient Express, select and various, and a little mysterious, and you are part of it tonight, dining among the great and the secret and the merely fortunate as it runs east through the dimness toward the mountains. There is a particular pleasure in dining late on it, which you feel now as the meal draws toward its close and the car begins, by degrees, to empty. The coffee comes, dark and strong, in a small cup, and perhaps a glass of something amber to go beside it, a brandy or a liqueur, and the steward sets down the little cup and the glass and moves quietly away, and you sit with them in the warm light and feel no urge at all to rise. One by one the other diners finish and go, drifting back down the train toward their cabins and their beds. A couple here, a solitary traveller there, nodding to the maitre d'as they pass, and the car grows slowly quieter and more intimate, the lamp seeming to glow warmer as the company thins, until you are among the last few lingering over the last of the coffee, in no hurry, watching the murk flow past the window. The express rocks on. The lamplit glass glows softly along the walls. The wheels keep their steady beat below, and there is nowhere in the world you need to be except exactly here in this warm, bright room flying east through the night, with a good dinner behind you and a soft bed waiting and the whole of the dark journey still unspooling ahead, and you let yourself sink all the way down into the rare deep contentment of it. Contentment of the traveller who has been fed and warmed and has nothing left to do but be carried onward into the night. Let me take you in your mind a little further into the society of the carriage, the floating company of strangers among whom you are passing this night, for they are part of the texture of the journey, and the imagination loves to dwell on them. Behind each of the closed cabin doors you passed on your way to dinner, there is a life, a story, a reason for travelling east through the blackness, and the blue cars gather an unusually rich and various collection of them, for it is expensive, and it goes to interesting places, and it has about it that air of romance that draws a certain kind of person. There is, let us say, in one cabin, an elderly diplomat going out to some embassy in the East, his dispatch case locked and chained, his mind full of the quiet, weighty business of treaties and dispatches, a man who has crossed Europe on this carriage 100 times and treats it as an extension of his club. In another, a famous singer or actress travelling to an engagement in a southern city, trailing a maid and a mountain of luggage and a faint cloud of scent, accustomed to being looked at, half asleep now behind her dark glasses. In another, a pair of newlyweds, shy and delighted, for whom the whole adventure of the blue train is the very crown of their wedding journey, whispering together in the gloom as the country flies past. And there are the others, the ones who give it its whisper of intrigue, who may or may not be aboard tonight, but who are always somewhere on this line. The man travelling under a name not quite his own, with more money than his luggage would suggest, and a habit of watching the door. The handsome adventurer who lives by his charm and his wits and his card play, working the dining car for a wealthy acquaintance. The beautiful woman travelling alone, which a woman of her evident class did not often do in this age, about whom the other passengers speculate in low voices. The quiet grey man in the corner who might be a commercial traveller and might be something altogether else, for the coach that crosses so many frontiers, carrying so many people of consequence, is the natural element of those whose work is watching and listening, and the quiet carrying of secrets across borders. None of these may be aboard tonight. All of them have been aboard, some night or other on this line, and the knowledge of it hangs about the carriage like a faint perfume, so that as you lie in your cabin, and hear a soft footfall pass in the corridor, or a low voice speaking a foreign tongue, or the click of a latch, your imagination is free to spin whatever story it likes, and it invites it, for this above all is the express of stories, and to ride it is to feel yourself a character in one Some of the company do not go straight to their beds when dinner is done. Toward the rear of the train there is another lit room, the salon, where a steward keeps a small bar through the late hours, and here a few of the travellers gather to draw out the evening a little longer. The lamps are lower here than in the dining car, the leather chairs deep, the air soon blue with the smoke of good cigars, and the talk runs quiet and unhurried in 3 or 4 languages at once. A brandy is poured and set at your elbow without a word. Someone laughs softly in a corner. The dark country streams past the windows, unregarded now, and for an hour the salon holds the last warm, wakeful life of the train, the final glow before the corridors empty, and the doors close one by one, and the long blue cars give themselves over to sleep. But most of the travellers, of course, are none of these romantic figures, but only people, ordinary fortunate people, going about the business, or the pleasure of their lives. And there is a quiet fellow feeling among them that is its own pleasure. You catch it in the dining car, the nods between strangers, the easy talk that springs up between people who will never meet again, freed by the anonymity of travel and the shared adventure of it to a friendliness they might not show at home. You catch it in the corridor, the murmured courtesies as people edge past one another, the shared half-smile at a lurch of the car. There is a sense, faint but real, of being all in it together, all embarked on the same passage through the same dark, all trusting themselves to the same blue cars and the same watchful staff, 100 strangers made briefly into a kind of community by the simple fact of being carried together through the night. And then in the morning they will scatter, each to their own city and their own life, and never think of one another again. The community of the night train dissolving with the dawn as such communities do. But for this one night they are your fellow travellers, your companions in the shadow, sleeping all around you in their rocking rooms as the carriage bears the whole strange various freight of them east toward the mountains and the morning. And there's a warmth in that, in the shared human cargo of the night, that adds its own quiet note to the comfort of the journey. When at last you rise and make your way back down the swaying train toward your cabin, you find that something has happened while you dined. You slide open your door, and the little sitting room you left has become a bedroom. The conductor has been in, quietly, in your absence, and worked the small transformation that these cars perform every night of their lives. The sofa beneath the window has been opened out and made up into a bed, a proper bed, with a firm mattress and clean white sheets turned crisply down, a soft blanket bearing the company's monogram, and a plump pillow at the head, and above it, folded away by day, an upper berth has been let down from the wall for a second sleeper, though tonight it is yours alone and stays folded. A little ladder stands ready in case. The reading lamp glows softly at the bedhead. The heavy curtain has been half drawn across the window. A carafe of water and a glass stand on the folding table, and your night things, which the conductor has discreetly laid out, wait upon the turned-down sheet. The whole small room has been changed while you ate, from a parlour into a sleeping chamber, snug and dim and inviting, a nest of clean linen and glowing wood flying through the dark, and the sight of it, after a good dinner and a glass of wine, with the wheels rocking gently underfoot, makes you suddenly and deeply aware of how tired you are, and how good it will be to lie down. But do not lie down quite yet. Sit a while on the edge of the made bed, in the dim glow of the lamp, with the curtain half drawn and the dark country running past, because the night is yours and there is no hurry, and let me tell you a little about the coach that is carrying you, for it has a history as rich as its furnishings. The idea of it was born more than 40 years before this night, in the mind of a Belgian engineer who had travelled in America and seen the sleeping cars they ran there, and came home determined to give Europe something finer, a carriage of carriages in which a traveller might cross the whole continent in the comfort of a good hotel, sleeping in a real bed, dining at a real table, waited on by a trained staff, instead of sitting up all night on a hard bench in the cold. He founded a company to do it, the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons-lits, the International Sleeping Car Company, and he persuaded the railways of half a dozen countries to let his blue carriages run on their lines and across their borders, which was itself a feat of patience and diplomacy. And in the year 1883 he ran the first of his great expresses from Paris toward the east, toward Constantinople, with a party of journalists and dignitaries aboard to carry the wonder of it back to the world. They dined on game and fine wine as they crossed the darkening continent and slept in their beds as it climbed through the mountains and arrived to find themselves famous. And the legend of the Orient Express was born fully formed on that first journey and has never faded since. The carriages themselves, these midnight blue cars you are riding in tonight, are the latest and finest the company has yet built, and they are worth dwelling on as you sit in the lamplight, for they represent the highest point the art of the railway carriage has reached. The older cars were built of teak, varnished wood through and through, and beautiful in their way, but these new ones are built of steel, stronger and safer and quieter, and then clothed and lined within, in all the richness that the older wooden cars had carried on their surfaces. The deep blue of their steel sides is the colour the company has made its own, the blue that means luxury and distance to every traveller in Europe, and the gold of the lettering and the monogram is real gold leaf laid on by hand. Within, the marquetry that glows around you, the inlaid flowers and scrolls and urns, is the work of skilled craftsmen who served long apprenticeships to learn the laying of veneers, the cutting and fitting of 100 small pieces of coloured wood into a single seamless picture, and the glass panels in the dining car you so admired are the work of one of the most celebrated artists in France, who has made the moulded and frosted glass of this age into something collected and treasured the world over. Nothing in these cars is accidental. Every surface has been considered, designed, made by hand to be both beautiful and durable, to delight the eye of a fastidious traveller, and to survive years of hard running across the rough roads of a continent. They are, in their way, among the most perfect things their age has made, these rooms that move, and you are sitting inside one of them now, in the murk, somewhere in the fields of France, being carried east. And then there are the stories, which cling to it more thickly than to any other vehicle that has ever run, and which suit the dark and the lateness of the hour. For it that crosses so many frontiers, carrying the powerful and the secret and the desperate, gathers tales the way a ship gathers barnacles, and the Orient Express has gathered more than its share. There are the true ones, set down in the company's own records, the time a train of this line was caught in a great blizzard in the wild country toward the eastern end of the route, and stood snowbound for days in the drifts, the passengers rationing their food while the snow piled to the windows, an adventure that a famous English writer of mysteries would borrow, not long after, for the most celebrated of all her novels, the one in which a man is found dead in his cabin as the snowbound train stands stranded in the night, and every passenger aboard is a suspect. There are tales of kings who fled along this line with their mistresses and their fortunes when their thrones gave way beneath them. There are tales of jewel thieves and confidants, men, and beautiful adventuresses, of secret treaties carried in locked cases, of assignations in the dining car, and intrigues in the corridors, some of them surely true, and some of them surely invented, and most of them now beyond any telling apart. The point is not which are true. The point is that this is the kind of train about which such stories are told, the express that has come to stand in the mind of the whole world for romance and mystery and the glamour of travel into the unknown East, so that to ride it at all, even quietly, even only for a single night toward the mountains, is to ride inside a legend, and to feel the legend gather close about you in the dimness as it runs on and the lamp glows and the wheels keep their steady beat below. Look closely, while the lamp still burns, at the walls of your cabin, at the inlaid wood that glows around you, for it is the work of a vanishing craft, and it repays a long, slow attention. What looks at first like patterned panelling is in truth a picture built of wood, marquetry, the laying of thin sheets of veneer cut from many different trees and fitted together edge to form a design, flowers and leaves and scrolling vines and bordered panels. And the colours in it are not paint but the natural colours of the woods themselves. The pale honey of one tree, the warm red-brown of another, the near black of a third, the silvery grey of a fourth, chosen and combined by a craftsman with an eye for how they would sit together and catch the light. The grain runs different ways in the different pieces, so that the same wood seems to change colour as you move your head, and the light shifts across it, the petals of an inlaid flower seeming to gleam and then to dull, the whole panel alive with a quiet shimmer as the lamp swings gently with the motion of the train. It is old work, this, in its method, going back centuries to the cabinet makers who panelled the rooms of palaces and built the great inlaid desks and cabinets of kings. And the men who did it for the railway company were the heirs of that long tradition, craftsmen who had served years of apprenticeship to learn the cutting of the veneers, the fitting of the pieces, the laying of them down on the panel, the finishing and the polishing, a trade learned slowly and practiced with patience and pride. They worked from designs, building each panel piece by piece, cutting the small shapes of the flowers and the leaves and the scrolls from their different woods, fitting them together like the pieces of a puzzle, gluing them down, sanding and polishing the whole until it was smooth as glass, and the joins between the 100 pieces all but invisible, so that the picture seemed to have grown in the wood rather than been built into it. And they did it not for a palace that would stand still for centuries, but for a railway carriage that would be flung across a continent night after night, jolted and shaken and worked by the road. And yet the panels held, the inlay stayed tight, the work survived the hard running, a testament to how well it was made. There is something moving in finding work of this quality in a railway carriage, in the lavishing of such patient handcraft on the walls of a room that moves, and it tells you a great deal about the spirit of the company and the age that built these cars. They might have panelled the cabins in plain painted wood, or in cheap printed paper got up to look like something finer, and the passengers, in the dark, half asleep, would mostly never have known the difference. But they did not. They put in real marquetry, the genuine patient handwork of skilled men, because they believed that the traveller deserved to be surrounded by beauty, even in the dark, even asleep, even where few would look closely enough to see what they were given, and because they took pride in the doing of a thing as well as it could be done. And so you lie tonight in a small room whose walls are a quiet masterpiece of a craft, as old as the palaces of kings, built by hands long stilled, surrounding you with their patient beauty as you sleep, asking nothing, noticed by almost no one, glowing softly in the lamplight as the express carries it and you together through the blackness, a little travelling jewel box of inlaid wood, flying east through the night. The carriage you are riding belongs to a particular moment in the history of the world, and lying in the dimness aboard it, you are lying, in a sense, inside that moment. So let me set it for you, for it gives the journey a poignancy that deepens the pleasure. These are the years between the 2 world wars, though no one aboard tonight knows there is a second one coming. The long glittering pause of the 1920s drawing toward its close, an age that believed, after the horror it had just survived, that it had earned the right to be beautiful and gay and luxurious, and set about being so with a kind of desperate brilliance. It was the golden age of luxury travel, of the ocean liners crossing in floating palaces and the blue trains crossing the continent in jewelled comfort, an age when those who had money spent it on motion and pleasure and style, as no age quite had before. And the Orient Express was the very flower of it, the most luxurious way to cross the most romantic distance in Europe. To ride it in these years was to be at the bright heart of one's age, among the people, and in the manner that all the world envied, and the films and the novels celebrated. And the people who rode it in these years and the ones before and after were the people whose names filled the newspapers and the history books. Kings and queens travelled on it, and the deposed kings of fallen empires, of which the recent war had made a great many, crossing Europe with what remained of their courts and their fortunes. Statesmen rode it to the conferences where the maps of nations were redrawn. The great financiers and industrialists rode it about their enormous affairs. The famous of the stage and the opera, and increasingly of the new realm of the films, rode it to their engagements and their pleasures, trailing glamour and luggage. Writers rode it and wrote about it, so that it filled the literature of the age, the very symbol of travel and intrigue, and the meeting of strangers in transit, and the rich who were merely rich, with no other claim to fame, rode it, because it was the thing to do, the way to cross to the south or the east. It one simply took, if one could afford it and wished to travel well. It was a moving cross-section of the brilliant, restless, moneyed society of its day. The blue train and the legend of all those famous passengers settled upon it and became part of what it was, so that an ordinary traveller boarding it felt himself stepping into a kind of company, joining the long glittering procession of all who had ridden these blue cars before him. Yeah, it's powder. There is a poignancy in knowing, as we do and they did not, what lay ahead for that bright, confident age, the crash that was coming and the second and worse war beyond it, the long night that would fall over Europe and over the gay, golden world of the blue trains, the years when the cars would be requisitioned and damaged and scattered, when the line would be cut by frontiers slammed shut, when the whole easy, glittering passage across the continent that the coach embodied would become impossible and almost unimaginable. None of that has happened yet, on this night, in this year. The age is still bright, the carriage still runs in its full glory, the dinner is still served and the bed still made, and the blue cars still cross the continent as though they would do so forever. And you, lying in the dark aboard it, hold both things at once, the bright living moment and the knowledge of what is coming, and it lends the warmth and the luxury and the gentle rocking a kind of tenderness, the tenderness we feel for any beautiful thing we know to be more fragile than it knows itself to be, so that you hold the lovely night a little more closely, for knowing, as its passengers could not, how rare and how passing a thing it was, this golden age of the blue cars running through the dark. It is worth dwelling, as you settle into your cabin, on how much hidden cleverness has gone into making this small room comfortable, for the comfort that feels so effortless is in truth the fruit of a great deal of careful engineering, and to know it is to enjoy it the more. Consider first the simple fact that you can sit, and presently lie, in ease in a steel box being hauled across a continent at speed over the joints and points and curves of the rough iron road. The older railway carriages rode hard, every joint in the rail coming up through the floor as a jolt, every curve a lurch, so that a long journey left the traveller battered and weary. These cars ride soft, and the softness is built into them, layer upon layer. The body of the car rests on springs, great steel springs, and beneath them others, so that the shocks of the road are caught and absorbed and softened before they reach the floor, and the heavy steel weight of the car itself works in your favour, for a heavy thing rides more steadily than a light one, damping the small, quick jolts into the long, slow sway you feel as you lie in your bed. The wheels are turned true and the bearings run in oil, and the whole car is tuned, as a maker tunes an instrument, to turn the violence of the road into that gentle, endless, cradling motion that rocks you towards sleep. Consider the warmth, too, which you will be glad of as it climbs into the mountains and the night outside turns bitter. The car is heated, and heated cleverly, by steam piped from the locomotive far ahead or by the car's own apparatus, run along beneath the floor and the seats, so that a gentle warmth rises through the cabin, and there is a control by which you may turn it up or down to your liking, so that however hard the frost outside, however deep the snow on the mountains the express is climbing through, you lie warm beneath your blanket in a pocket of summer born through the winter night. Consider the light, the soft shaded electric lamp at your bedhead with its little switch, run from batteries charged by its own running, so that you may read in bed if you wish, and put out the light with a touch when you are done, a small convenience that the travellers of an earlier age, with their guttering oil lamps and candles, would have thought a miracle. Consider the water, hot and cold from the bright brass taps of your little washstand, carried in tanks aboard the car and warmed by its own system, so that you may wash in your own room in the middle of the night crossing the middle of Europe. Every one of these things had to be invented, worked out, fitted into the narrow swaying compass of a railway carriage by engineers who cared that the traveller should be comfortable, and the sum of all their cleverness is the deep ease in which you now lie, and an ease so complete that you never think of the contrivance beneath it, which is exactly the measure of how well it was contrived. And consider, last, the sheer cunning of the space itself, the way this little room has been made to do the work of several. By day, it is a sitting room, with its sofa and its table, a place to read and watch the country and take your ease. By night, in a few minutes of the conductor's practised work, it becomes a bedroom, the sofa unfolded into a bed, a second berth let down from the wall if needed, the table folded away, the whole character of the room transformed. Behind one panel hides the washstand, complete with basin and taps and mirror, folding away to nothing when not in use. Every surface does double duty. Every inch is considered. Nothing is wasted, in the manner of a ship's cabin or a fine cabinet maker's puzzle box, so that within a space barely larger than a generous wardrobe, a traveller has everything needful for a civilized day and a comfortable night, sitting room and bedroom and washroom all folded ingeniously into one. It is a small masterpiece of design, your cabin, the distillation of decades of learning how people may best be carried in comfort through the night, and you have the whole of it to yourself, this clever, warm, glowing little room, for the length of the journey. A private place of your own flying east through the gloom, while you lie at your ease within it, and let the cleverness you never see hold you snug and warm and gently rocking all the way to the morning. Let me tell you more about the conductor, the man in the brown and gold coat who handed you aboard, because he is the heart of the sleeping car, and the night belongs to him, and the figure of the wagons-lits conductor is as much a part of the legend of this train as the blue cars themselves. There is one of them to each carriage, and within his car he is everything, host and servant and guardian and quiet authority all at once. He has a small folding seat at the end of the corridor, by the door, and a little cubby where he keeps his things, the linen and the blankets, the tea and the soap, the polish for the brass, and a leather wallet in which he carries the passports and tickets of all his sleeping passengers, for he takes charge of these on boarding and gives them back only at journey's end, dealing himself with the officials at every frontier, so that his passengers need never wake. He knows the name of everyone in his car and their destination, and soon enough their habits and their wishes, who likes the window cracked, and who wants tea at 6, and who is not to be disturbed on any account. He is unflappable, endlessly courteous, fluent very often in 3 or 4 languages picked up across years of crossing borders, and he has a way of being entirely present when wanted, and entirely invisible when not, which is among the rarest and most valuable of all the skills of service. His night is long, far longer than yours. While the passengers dine and then drift back one by one to their cabins, he is at work, turning the day cabins into night ones, folding down the beds, drawing the fresh sheets tight, laying out the blankets and the night things, setting each small room to rights for sleep. And then, when the last of them has retired and the corridor has gone dim and quiet, his real watch begins, for he does not sleep, or sleeps only in snatches on his folding seat, sitting up through the small hours in the swaying corridor, while his charges sleep behind their locked doors. He tends the heating, so that the cars stay warm as the carriage climbs into the cold of the mountains. He answers the bell if it rings in the night, bringing water or a blanket or a quiet word to a sleepless traveller. He deals with the frontier officials when they come aboard in the dead hours, presenting his wallet of papers, answering their questions in their own tongue, so that the stamping of passports and the business of borders goes on in the corridor, few feet from sleeping heads that never stir. He is awake at the stations in the night, watching the platform, seeing that no one boards who should not, and he is awake before the dawn, beginning to bring the early tea, to wake gently those who must rise, to fold away the beds again as the cars roll on toward the morning. He gives his whole night, every night, to the sleep of strangers, and asks in return only the small courtesies and the gratuity at the end. And the travellers who sleep so soundly in his care mostly never know the half of what he does for them through the dark. It is a particular life. The conductors lived almost entirely aboard the moving train, away from home for days and weeks together, sleeping when he can, eating in the corners of the day, always crossing borders, always among strangers, always at his post. The men who do it well are a certain type, drawn to the road and its rhythms, proud of their cars and their company, and the standard of their service, keepers of 1,000 small discretions. For a man who tends the sleeping cars of the powerful and the secret learns early to see much and say nothing. They are the quiet, constant presence of the journey, these men, the one fixed human point in the traveller's passage through the shadow. There at the step when you board, and there at the step when you alight, and through all the hours between, whenever you wake and wonder where you are, there is the dim corridor and the gleam of the marquetry, and at the end of it on his little seat, the patient figure in the gold-trimmed coat, awake, watching, keeping the night in order while you sleep. There is a deep comfort in knowing he is there, and it is part of what lets you sleep so well aboard it. The knowledge that someone trustworthy is awake and on watch, that you may give yourself wholly to sleep, because another's wakefulness is holding the night steady around you. The man who dreamed all this into being deserves more than the passing mention I gave him, for his was one of the great romantic enterprises of the age, and the story of it suits the lamplit lateness of the hour. He was a young Belgian, the son of a banking family, and as a young man he travelled, as well-off young men did, and his travels took him over the ocean to America, where the railways were flinging themselves over a whole continent, and where a man had lately grown famous and rich by building sleeping cars, carriages in which the traveller on those enormous American journeys might lie down and sleep instead of sitting up for days on end. The young Belgian rode in those cars and saw what they did, and saw too that Europe, with its many countries crammed close together and its growing web of railways, had nothing of the kind, that a traveller wishing to cross from Paris to Vienna or beyond still faced a wretched journey of hard seats and cold nights and endless changes at every frontier, and he conceived the ambition that would consume his life to give Europe sleeping cars of its own, finer than the American ones, and more than that, to run them himself over all the borders as a single connected service, so that a traveller might board in one country and sleep his way across 3 or 4 others without ever leaving the comfort of the same blue carriage. It was a far harder thing to do in Europe than in America, and that is the measure of the man. In America, the railways ran across one vast country under one flag. In Europe, every line stopped at a frontier. Every country had its own railways and its own rules and its own jealous officials, and to run a single train of private carriages across all of them, picking up the engines of each country in turn, and crossing border after border, required not just carriages and capital, but treaties, agreements, the patient winning over of a dozen suspicious governments and railway companies, each of which had to be persuaded to let this foreign company's blue cars run on its tracks and cross its borders. He spent years at it, and very nearly ruined himself more than once, and was saved at a low moment by the backing of a king, and slowly, agreement by agreement, he built his network, until his sleeping cars ran the length and breadth of the continent, and his company, the International Sleeping Car Company, had become a kind of soft empire of comfort, laid over the map of Europe, owing allegiance to no single country, carrying the travellers of all of them. And the jewel of it, the coach that made his name immortal, was the one he ran east toward Constantinople, the one he gave the name that still means more than any other in the history of travel, the Orient Express. He lived to see it become a legend, and to see his blue cars become the byword for luxury across the world, and the company he founded outlived him and went on building its cars finer and finer through the teak years, and into these new steel ones you are riding tonight, always to the same idea he had carried home from America as a young man, the idea that a journey could be a pleasure rather than a trial, that the crossing of the world could be done in the comfort of a moving hotel, waited on and warm, and at ease. Every blue carriage on every line of Europe is the child of that idea, and that long stubborn effort, and when you lie down tonight in your bed aboard his train, and let it rock you to sleep as it carries you east through the mountains, you are sleeping inside one man's lifelong dream, a dream he chased over an ocean and back and through years of near ruin, the dream that the traveller need not suffer, that distance might be crossed in comfort, that the night journey might be, not the worst part of the trip, but the very best. It worked. It is working now, around you, in the warmth and the quiet and the gentle rocking of the car, more than 40 years after that first train ran east into the dark, and it will go on working as long as these blue cars run, and there are travellers to be rocked to sleep inside them. There is something to be said, as it runs on through the dark toward the first of its frontiers, about the strange romance of what this carriage does, which is to cross Europe, to run clean through the middle of a whole continent of separate countries, as though the borders between them were no more than lines drawn on a map. For Europe in this age is a crowded patchwork of nations, each with its own language and its own money and its own suspicious officials at the edges, each fiercely itself, and to travel across it ordinarily is to be forever stopping, changing trains at frontiers, having your luggage turned out and your papers stamped, fumbling with unfamiliar coins, beginning again in a new tongue every few hundred miles. The blue train abolishes all of that. It runs straight through, picking up a new engine at each frontier perhaps, but never setting its passengers down, carrying them sleeping across border after border, so that you may lie down to sleep in France and wake in Italy, having crossed Switzerland in your dreams. The frontiers passed in the night, the languages and the currencies and the flags changing outside while you sleep on undisturbed within the same blue car, in the same bed, tended by the same conductor. It makes of the fractured continent a single smooth passage, and there is a real wonder in that, a kind of magic carpet quality, the sense of being lifted over all the friction and bother of travel, and set down gently at the far end, having sailed clean over the borders in your sleep. And the destinations lettered on the boards at the head of the platform are themselves an enchantment, for this is a line that runs clean off the edge of the familiar world. Its far end is not a city you know. Day after day, night after night, The blue cars run on east past where you will leave them, down through Italy, and over the head of the warm sea, and into the half-known country of the Balkans, through gorges and over high passes, past walled towns and the domes of old churches and the slender towers of the east, until at the last they come down to the shore of a narrow sea, to the fabled city that stands astride the water where Europe ends and Asia begins, the old imperial capital of domes and bazaars that the world has called Constantinople since before any of us were born. To the Western traveller of this age that East was still half a dream, a place of spice and silk and intrigue compounded out of old tales, and the line that ran to its threshold carried all of that glamour upon it, so that its very name became a kind of poetry, standing not for a row of carriages, but for the whole longing of the West toward the mysterious and the far. It is why the writers loved it and set their tales aboard it, and why the name has outlived by a long way the age that first gave it meaning. You tonight are bound only a little way along that great line, only across the mountains and down into the soft north of Italy, where in the morning you will step down and let the blue cars run on east without you. And that is enough, more than enough, for one night's sleep. You need not reach the golden city to feel the pull of the line that runs to it. It is enough to lie in your bed in the murk, and know that the rails beneath you are the same rails that go all the way to the edge of the map, that you are aboard the very train of the legend, pointed for this one night toward the sunrise. Tomorrow you will wake among the lakes and the soft light of the south. Tonight you are simply on the road to everywhere, and you may let that whole glittering distance stretch away ahead of you a while in the dark, all the countries and the frontiers and the fabled cities at the end of it, and then let it go, and let the wheels beat it slowly out of your mind and sleep. It is worth knowing, too, that the train you are riding is not alone in the world, but one of a whole constellation of such trains, the company sent out across the map of Europe night after night. While your blue cars run south and east toward Italy and the mountains, others of the same deep blue and gold are pulling out of Calais this very evening, bound for the warmth of the Riviera, gliding down through the dark toward the palms and the bright sea of the south. Others still are running north and east toward the Baltic and the great plains beyond, and west over the mountains toward Madrid and Lisbon and the edge of the Atlantic. The company had drawn a web of luxury clean across the continent, a network of night trains by which a traveller might be carried in the same deep comfort from the cold northern sea to the warm Mediterranean, from the Atlantic shore to the gates of Asia, never once stepping out of the care of the men in the brown and gold coats. Your train tonight is a single strand of that great web, one blue thread drawn south and east across the sleeping body of Europe, while a dozen others are drawn, at this same hour, toward a dozen other dawns. So, cast your mind back a little, to the early part of the evening before the dinner you have eaten, to a small ceremony that belonged to a journey like this, and that our hurried age has wholly let go. For one did not simply wander along to the dining car in the clothes one had travelled in. One dressed. In the privacy of the cabin, with the country darkening at the window and the bed not yet made up, the traveller changed for dinner, as carefully as for an evening ashore, the gentleman into sleeping evening clothes, the lady into silk and a few quiet jewels, brushing and pinning before the small mirror while the floor swayed gently underfoot. It was part of the unspoken contract of the train, this dressing, a way of honouring the strange and lovely fact that one was about to dine in high style, while flying through the dark at speed across a foreign country, and there was a particular pleasure in it, in making oneself fine for no one in particular, for the pure sake of the occasion, and then stepping out into the glowing corridor, and going along to the warm, bright room where the table waited with its silver and its shaded lamp. You did it yourself tonight, without quite naming it a ritual. It is one of the small graces the journey asks of you and gives back doubled. There is a thought that comes naturally on a night like this, lying in the dimness and being carried slowly across a continent, about what travel once was and what it asked of a person. To go far in this age was a serious and deliberate thing, planned for, packed for in a trunk and not a bag, embarked upon with ceremony and unfolding over days rather than hours, and those days were not an obstacle to the journey but the very heart of it. The slowness was not a flaw to be cured but the source of the whole value of the thing, for it gave the passage room to work on you, to carry you not merely from one place to another, but from oneself to another, the distance sinking in by patient miles, the change of country becoming, by the end of it, a kind of change in you. The traveller who crossed Europe in 3 unhurried days on the blue cars, stepped down at the far end rested, and somehow remade, having lived for those days in a pure state of passage that the daylight world affords nowhere at all, and the company built its carriages to make that slowness not an endurance to be survived, but the chief and the rarest of all its luxuries. And you keep remarkable company on a line like this, though you may never learn who else is lying awake or asleep behind the closed doors you passed. Very nearly everyone the age thought worth carrying has been carried here at one time or another. Crowned heads have ridden these cars as other men hail a cab to the club. A celebrated teller of mysteries loved this way of travelling above every other, and gave it back to the world, transformed into the most famous railway tale ever written, dreamed up, the story goes, in a hotel room at the eastern end of the line. Inventors and singers and impresarios have slept where you will sleep tonight. So have those quieter passengers whose true business no fellow traveller ever quite made out, the ones who give the line its faint perfume of intrigue. The blue cars asked none of them their business, and remembered all of it, and told nothing, and that discretion, kept across 1,000 nights, was worth as much to the great as the marquetry and the silver together. None of them, in the end, was any more a passenger than you are now. The dark makes equals of everyone who lies down in it, and the same patient men in the gold-trimmed coats keep the same watch over a sleeping statesman and a sleeping clerk, asking nothing, missing nothing, carrying each of them gently on toward the morning. We have largely lost it now, that art of the slow, luxurious journey, traded it away for speed, the darting flight that crosses in an hour what the blue train crossed in a night, and feels none of the distance, arrives jangled and unrested, having merely been transported, not having travelled at all. And there is a real loss in that, which you can feel as you lie in the rocking bed and let the slow miles carry you through the dark, the loss of the journey as an experience, as a pleasure, as a space set apart for rest and transformation. The blue train kept the older wisdom. It made the journey the point. It carried you slowly, on purpose, through the night, and filled the slowness with every comfort, and asked only that you surrender to it, that you stop hurrying, that you let the long miles and the deep sleep and the changing country do their slow work upon you. And that, more than the marquetry and the lalique and the silver, is the deepest luxury it affords, the rarest thing it gives, the gift of slowness, the gift of the journey that is its own reward, the gift of being carried, gently and at length, through the blackness and the distance, with nothing to do and nowhere to hurry to, and the whole long night to do not a thing in but rest. Now you may lie down, undress in the dim warm privacy of your cabin, and wash at the little basin with its bright brass taps and the company's own soap, and put on your night things, and turn down the reading lamp until only the smallest glow remains, and draw the curtain not quite closed, so that you can still see a strip of the running night, and then lie down at last in the made bed, between the cool, clean sheets, with the monogrammed blanket drawn up, and the pillow soft beneath your head, and let yourself feel the whole length of your body come to rest. The bed is narrow, but it is real and firm and beautifully made, and the moment you lie down in it, the rocking of the express, which you had felt all evening as a sway underfoot, becomes something else entirely. A long, gentle, cradling motion that takes hold of the whole bed and rocks it, slow and even and endless, the way a hand rocks a cradle, or the way a boat lifts and settles at its mooring on a quiet swell. And under it, through the pillow and the mattress and the frame of the bed, comes the sound of the wheels, that steady double beat over the rail joints, softened now and rhythmic, a sound like a slow heartbeat, like something remembered from before you were born. And you understand at once, lying there, why people who ride these trains speak of the sleep they have aboard them as the best sleep of their lives. You were made, somewhere deep in the oldest part of you, to be rocked to sleep to the sound of a steady beat, and it does it for you, all night long, mile after mile, without ever tiring. There is a small ceremony in going to bed aboard a train, different from going to bed at home and pleasanter, and it is worth doing slowly and attending to, for it is part of the night's deep comfort. At home the going to bed is a routine worn smooth by repetition, half noticed. The same rooms, the same motions, the mind already half asleep or still tangled in the day. Aboard the train it is fresh, a little novel, a thing done in a small, strange, beautiful room flying through the dark, and the novelty wakes you to it, makes you notice it, turns the ordinary nightly business into a small adventure. You draw the bolt on the cabin door, sealing yourself in, and there is a satisfaction in that slight act, the click of the bolt, the cabin made wholly private and safe, your own little fastness for the night. You let down the panel of the washstand and run the water, hot from the brass tap into the porcelain basin, and wash your face and hands in the privacy of your own room with the express rocking around you, and the warm water and the good soap and the clean towel are a modest luxury keenly felt. You undress in the lamplit space and hang your clothes and put on your night things, and there is a faint delicious strangeness in undressing for bed in a moving room, in being about to lie down and sleep while the carriage carries you on through the country at speed, and then the getting into the bed itself, which the conductor has made up so beautifully, the turning back of the monogrammed blanket and the crisp sheet, the lying down into the firm narrow berth, the settling of the head into the soft pillow, the drawing up of the covers, the reaching out to the little brass switch to put out the reading lamp. There is a particular pleasure in that last gesture, the putting out of the light for the moment the lamp goes dark. The cabin fills with the faint glow from the strip of window where the curtain is not quite drawn, and the black country and the running night come close, and you are lying in the dark in a moving bed with the whole night around you, and the rocking takes you, and the sound of the wheels comes up clear in the blackness now that the light is gone, and you are poised on the very threshold of sleep, in the most perfect circumstances for it that travel has ever devised. You lie there a moment in the gloom, feeling the bed rock, listening to the wheels, watching the faint grey of the window, and you feel sleep gathering at the edges of you, patient and sure, waiting to take you down. It is the threshold itself that is so sweet, that moment between waking and sleep, drawn out and savoured here as it seldom is at home. You are warm. You are safe behind your bolted door. You are clean and comfortable in a well-made bed. You are being carried gently and steadily through the shadow toward the morning by others who are awake and watchful so that you need not be. There is nothing left to do, nothing to think of, nothing to manage or to fear. The day is over and done and falling away behind it, and the morning is far off and will take care of itself, and there is only this, the soft gloom, the rocking bed, the singing wheels, the soft pillow, the gathering sleep, and you let it come. You let go of the last threads of the waking day one by one, and let the rocking and the sound and the warmth and the dark do their old sure work, and feel yourself sinking, slowly, deliciously, down past the threshold and into the deep, sweet sleep of the night train, carried all the while through the shadowed country toward the mountains and the morning, asking naught, needing none, resting at last as completely as a person can rest, rocked in the cradle of the blue cars running east through the night. For a while you lie awake in the murk on purpose, because the sleep is too delicious to fall into all at once, and you watch the strip of night go by beyond the half-drawn curtain. There is little to see, and that little is lovely. The country of France is rolling past out there, invisible and black, and every so often the lights of a sleeping village swing slowly by, a scatter of yellow points in the dimness, a lit window where someone is awake, the brief glare of a level crossing with its gates closed and its lamp burning, and perhaps a single motor car waiting behind the barrier for the coach to pass, the driver looking up for an instant at the long row of dimly lit blue windows sliding by in the night, and wondering, as people always wonder, who is in there, where they are going, what lives are being carried east behind that glass. A town comes larger, its station bright and empty as the carriage rushes through without stopping, the platforms flashing past, a porter standing alone under a lamp, a name board you cannot quite read, and then the dark again and the open country, the fields and the woods and the rivers of France, all of it sleeping, all of it flowing past your window in the night while you lie warm in your bed and are carried through the middle of it toward the mountains and the frontier. There is an art to watching the night country go by from the window of a train, and it is one of the gentlest and most restful things a person can do, and you have the whole long night to practice it. Lie with the curtain drawn back just a little, your head on the pillow turned toward the glass, and simply watch, and let the watching empty your mind away almost nothing else can. By day a carriage window gives you a great deal to do, the near things rushing and the far things wheeling, the whole busy detail of the land demanding to be looked at. By night it asks nothing of you at all, and that asking nothing is its quiet gift. There is the shadow, and your own dim reflection, floating upon it, half here and half out there in the flying night. And beneath it, the long soft rhythm of the wheels, and nothing your eyes are obliged to catch, or your mind obliged to keep. You may let your gaze rest on the blackness, and let your thoughts loosen and drift, and come untied, one from another, the way they will not do in a lit room or a still one, until you are not really thinking at all, only floating, carried, watching the dark without watching for anything, which is as near to the edge of sleep as waking ever comes. And drift it does, watching the dark, in a way it seldom can in the daylight world. The thoughts come unbidden and unhurried, rise and pass like the far lights, and you do not chase them or hold them, only watch them go by as you watch the country go by, and there is a deep rest in it, a kind of waking sleep, the mind idling, freewheeling, let off the leash of purpose for once, and allowed simply to wander. People who cannot rest at home, whose minds race and fret the moment they lie down, find that on it, watching the blackness go by. The racing slows and the fretting eases, and a kind of peace steals over them that they had almost forgotten. It is the motion, perhaps, and the rhythm, and the gloom, and the sense of being carried, all working together. But most of all, it is the watching itself, the long, unfocused gazing at the passing night, that does it, that empties and quiets and rests the mind as surely as sleep, and prepares it for the deeper sleep to come. So watch the night a while, before you let your eyes close for good. Watch the unlit fields, and the far lights slide by. Watch the shape of the country reveal itself in glimpses, a line of hills against the stars, the gleam of a river, the black mass of a wood. Watch the rare lit window and wonder idly who is awake behind it in the small hours and why, and let the wondering drift away unanswered. Watch your own reflection floating on the glass, lit faintly by the dim lamp, a ghost riding through the night country with you. And feel as you watch, the day you have left behind growing smaller and further, the cares of it loosening their hold, the whole tight knot of waking life slowly coming undone in the dark and the motion and the long quiet watching, until you can hardly remember what it was that seemed so pressing only this morning, and there is nothing left in all the world but the shadow, and the far lights, and the steady beat of the wheels, and the gentle rocking of the bed, and your own eyes growing heavier and heavier as the express bears you on through the night toward the mountains and the morning. It is the small things in the end that a traveller remembers of a night like this, the little sensory details that fix themselves in the memory and bring the journey flooding back years later at a chance encounter. And the blue train is rich in them. So let me draw your attention to a few as you lie in the murk, that you may gather them and keep them. There is the smell of it first of all, which is like no other smell, compounded of many things and unmistakable once known. The beeswax polish on the marquetry, the faint sweet ghost of cigar smoke soaked into the upholstery over years, the clean starched smell of the bed linen, the metallic tang of the heating, the coal smoke that finds its way in at the gangways, the trace of good food drifting back from the restaurant car, the cologne of a fellow passenger passing in the corridor, and beneath it all, faint and constant, the smell of the carriage itself, of warm wood and oiled metal and long use, the smell that means, to anyone who has known it, the blue train, the night, the journey, comfort and distance, and the road going on through the dark. There are the sounds, which I have spoken of, the wheels and the whistle and the woven quiet, but there are smaller ones too, that you catch only when you listen, the tiny chime of the carafe against the glass on the folding table, as the car sways, the creak of the berth above you, the soft click as the heating adjusts itself, the all but inaudible hum of the wheels risen up through the frame of the bed into your very bones, the distant muffled sound of a door sliding shut 3 cabins away, the sigh of the brakes far down the coach as it slows for a curve. And there are the sights, the particular small sights of the night cabin, the dim amber glow of the reading lamp on the inlaid wood, the way the marquetry flowers seem to shift and gleam as the lamp swings gently with the motion, your own coat swaying on its hook by the door, the strip of running darkness at the edge of the curtain, the little brass fittings catching what light there is, the small, glowing, intimate world of the cabin rocking gently through the immense, shadowed country. And there is the feel of it all, the deep plush of the seat beneath your hand, the cool smoothness of the linen sheet, the weight of the monogrammed blanket, the firm give of the pillow, that gentle, ceaseless rocking that takes your whole body and cradles it, the faint vibration of the running train humming in everything you touch. These are the things you will remember, long after the grand facts of the journey have faded. The smell and the sounds and the feel of the night aboard the blue cars, the small sensory truth of it, the way it felt to lie in that warm, glowing, rocking little room and be carried through the dark. Gather them now as you lie here. Breathe the smell of it. Listen to its little sounds. Feel the linen and the blanket and the rocking. Look at the lamplight on the inlaid flowers. For this is the heart of the thing, finer than any history or any list of luxuries. The simple sensory blessing of being here, now, snug and safe and gently rocking, in the murk, aboard the most beautiful train in the world, carried smoothly through the night toward the morning, with nothing to do and nowhere to be, and the whole of the journey wrapped around you like the soft blanket itself. And notice, as you lie there, the way the express takes a curve, for it is one of the loveliest of all its motions, and you sense it through the length of your resting body. For most of the night the line runs straight or nearly so, and the rocking is even and side to side, a simple cradling. But every so often the track bends, and the car leans into the curve, tilting gently as it sweeps round, and you feel the lean come slowly on and hold a moment, and then slowly release as the line straightens again. A long, smooth banking motion, like the leaning of a boat into a turn or a great bird tilting on the wind, and your body lying still is leaned with it, pressed a little deeper into the mattress and then eased back, rocked now not only side to flank, but round and through, in a richer and more complex motion that the wheels sing under as their note changes on the curve, rising a little, the rhythm of the rail joints quickening, and then slowing as it comes round and runs on straight again. There is a deep animal pleasure in being moved like that, leaned and rocked and carried through the dark by a motion you have no part in making, and need do nothing to meet. And it is one of the truest comforts of the night express. The body given over wholly to the long, smooth banking sway of the running car, rocked round the curves of the sleeping country toward the morning. That if you should wake in the deep middle of the night, as travellers sometimes do even in the best of beds, and lie a while in the dimness not quite knowing where you are, let me tell you what the train is like around you in those small hours, for it has a particular character then, the sleeping train running through the dark. That is one of the quietly magical things in all of travel. The cabins all down the car are unlit and silent behind their closed doors. A dozen people asleep within a few feet of you, each in their own small rocking room, strangers all breathing in the blackness, dreaming their own dreams, carried east together through the night and yet each alone sealed in their own private cabin of sleep. The corridor outside your door is dim, only the lowest lamps left burning, the marquetry gleaming faintly along the walls, the carpet swallowing all sound, the lightless windows on the far side showing nothing but the night and, now and then, a far light swinging by. And at the end of the corridor, on his little folding seat, sits the conductor awake, the one waking mind in all that sleeping car, keeping his watch and the small red glow of the night lamp by his seat, or the faint light over his ledger, is the only sign of waking life in the whole dim length of the carriage. The sounds of the night train are few and soft, and they weave themselves into your half-sleep. There is always the wheels, of course, the steady double beat below, risen now to your half-waking ear as a kind of music, a rhythm you could almost set words to, going on and on beneath everything, the pulse of the journey. There is the faint creak of the car's timbers and fittings as it sways and works, the small sounds a ship makes at sea. There is the occasional long sigh and moan of the express's whistle far ahead, sounding for a crossing or a station in the night, the loneliest and most evocative sound in all the world, the sound that means distance and departure, and the road going on through the blackness, drifting back along the carriage and fading. There is, when it slows through a station, the brief change in the sound, the platform lights sliding past the edge of the curtain, a voice perhaps on the platform, the clack of the points as the coach takes the road again, and under and through all of it, the deep hush of 100 people asleep, and a train running smooth and warm through the cold dark country, a hush that is not silence but a kind of woven quiet, the small sounds of the night train all braided together into something that holds you and rocks you, and before you have even decided to, draws you back down again into sleep. I find a particular comfort in waking briefly in the night aboard it, and then sinking back into sleep that you can get almost nowhere else. To wake and not know quite where you are, and then to remember, yes, I am aboard the blue train, crossing Europe in the night. I am being carried while I sleep, and to feel the bed rock gently on beneath you, and hear the wheels keep their beat, and know that the patient conductor is awake at the end of the car, keeping the night in order, and that the carriage is running on through the dark exactly as it should, carrying you steadily toward the morning while you do nothing at all but lie here warm and safe. That is a comfort of a rare and deep kind, the comfort of being carried, of being looked after, of having for once nothing whatever to do or to manage or to worry over, of being a child again in a sense, rocked in a cradle by a kindly gloom, with someone trustworthy keeping watch. And so you do not fight the waking or fret at it, as you might at home, but lie still and let it be, content in the simple knowledge of where you are and whose hands you are in, until the solace itself grows heavy and draws you back down, easily, into the sleep you rose from, none the worse, and somehow the richer for the brief surfacing. Spare a thought as you lie warm in your bed far back in the express, for the head of it, for the locomotive and the men who run it, because they are the muscle that drags all this comfort through the night, and they have the hardest place on the entire express. Far ahead of your cabin, beyond the sleeping cars and the dining car, at the very front, runs the heavy engine, and it is a different world up there from the hushed and carpeted one you inhabit, where you have warmth and quiet and soft light. The men on the footplate have a roaring fire and a freezing wind, and the dark rushing at them out of the night. The driver stands at his controls, peering ahead into the blackness for the signals, his hand on the regulator, feeling the road through his feet, judging the grade and the curve, easing his great charge along through the dark. Beside him the fireman labours, swinging coal from the tender into the white heart of the firebox, shovelful after shovelful, hour after hour building and tending the fire that boils the water that drives the wheels, his front scorched by the open fire, and his back chilled by the night wind, the two of them working in the noise and the heat and the cold and the shadow to keep it running smooth and on time through the night. It is skilled and serious work, the running of a famous express, far more than simply opening a throttle. The driver must know his road by heart, every curve and grade and signal of it, must know where to give the engine its head and where to hold it back, must brake for the bends and the stations so gently that the sleeping passengers far behind never feel it, must keep his time exactly, neither early nor late, across the whole long run of the night. The fireman must feed his fire with judgment as well as labour, keeping the steam pressure exactly right, not so low that the engine falters on the grades, nor so high that it blows off and wastes itself, reading the road ahead with the driver, so as to have steam in hand for the climbs. The two of them work as one in a partnership of long practice, and the smoothness of your ride, the very gentleness of the rocking that is sending you to sleep, is in large part their doing, the fruit of their skill and their watchfulness up there in the cold and the dark at the head of the carriage. And when the coach comes to a frontier, there is a changing of the guard at the head of it that you never see, for each country's railways run their trains with their own engines and their own men, and so at the border, the engine that has hauled you through one country is uncoupled and run off, and a fresh engine of the next country is backed on in its place, with a fresh crew who know the road ahead, and it goes on, the same blue cars, the same sleeping passengers, but a new engine and new men at the head, picking up the load and carrying it on into their own country. It happens in the night at the frontier stations while you sleep. A brief flurry of work in the cold and the murk, the clank of couplings, the hiss of steam, voices on the platform, and then the new engine takes the strain, and the express pulls out again, hauled now by strangers into a strange land, and you sleep on through all of it, never knowing that the muscle at the head of your train has been changed beneath you, that you have been handed on, like a baton, from one country's men to the next, carried through the night by a relay of unseen hands, each crew taking you a stage of the way and giving you up to the next, all the long way across the sleeping continent to the morning. Somewhere in the small hours, though you may be asleep by then and only half feel it, it comes to the frontier, and the manner of the crossing tells you everything about what kind of train this is. A lesser train would haul its passengers from their seats in the cold middle of the night, herd them out onto a freezing platform with their luggage, line them up before the officials of two countries to have their papers stamped and their bags turned out. On this train, none of that happens. You have given your passport to the conductor when you boarded, and he keeps it, all the documents of his carriage gathered in his leather wallet, and when the train draws into the frontier station in the small hours, slowing, stopping, the hiss of steam, the quiet of a station in the dead of night, the officials come aboard to him, and it is the conductor who deals with them, standing in his corridor in his brown and gold coat, presenting the papers of his sleeping passengers, answering the low questions, while behind the closed doors of the cabins the travellers sleep on, undisturbed, knowing nothing of it. You might wake for a moment at the stopping of the express, at the unaccustomed stillness after the hours of motion, at a murmur of voices in the corridor, and a glimpse of lantern light at the edge of the curtain, and wonder dimly where you are, and then the carriage sighs and stirs and begins to move again, and you sink back into sleep, and you have crossed out of France and into Switzerland without rising from your bed. The frontier passed in your sleep, the whole business of nations and borders handled quietly in the corridor by the patient man in the gold-trimmed coat, while you dreamed. And if you do wake in that deep middle stretch of the night, and lift the curtain and look out, you may find that the world beyond the glass has utterly changed while you slept. The flat, dark fields of France are gone. It is running now along the edge of a great lake, a vast sheet of black water lying still and immense in the night, and along its far shore, miles off across the water, a long necklace of lights is strung, the lights of the towns along the lake, doubled and wavering in the black mirror of the water below them, and above them, dim and enormous against the night sky, a wall of mountains, the first of the Alps, their snowfields catching what little light there is and giving back a faint and ghostly grey. The coach runs along the very margin of the lake, between the black water and the rising land, through a country of vineyards and steep little towns, and the lights of a city gather ahead and slide past, a city climbing its hillside above the lake, its station bright in the night, and then the dark and the water again. There is a stillness over everything here, the stillness of high cold country in the depth of the night, the lake lying motionless, the mountains waiting, the few lights burning steady in the cold, and the blue train running quietly along the shore through the middle of it, its lit windows reflected for a moment in the inky water as it passes, carrying its sleeping cargo east toward the mountains that stand across the head of the lake and bar the way south. The mountains the carriage must somehow get through before the night is out. The lake it runs beside in the small hours is one of the loveliest sheets of water in Europe, and even in the dimness, even half asleep, you feel the grandeur of the country it lies in. It is a great curved lake cradled among mountains, long and deep and clear, fed by the river that comes down from the high Alps and running out again at its western end toward the sea, and along its shores the land rises in terraces of vineyard, the slopes so steep and so carefully cultivated that the vines are held up on walls built by hand over centuries, terrace above terrace climbing from the water's edge. By day it is a country of astonishing beauty, the blue lake, the green vineyards, the white mountains standing over all, dotted with old towns and castles, and the villas of the rich who have come here for generations to take the air and the view. By night, it is a country of dark water and scattered lights, the lake a vast black absence in the middle of the land, the towns strung along its shores in necklaces of light that the still water doubles and holds, the mountains a deeper darkness against the shadowy sky, the whole scene hushed and immense and faintly unreal, seen through the window of a passing train in the dead of night. There is a city along this lake where the express slows, perhaps stops a moment, a city that climbs steeply up from the water on the northern shore, its lights rising tier on tier up the hillside, an old and dignified place, a city of learning and of quiet wealth. where exiles and writers and the chronically unwell have come for 2 centuries to live beside the calm water in the clean air. It draws into its station in the small hours, the platform bright and nearly empty, a porter or two, a railway official walking the length of the carriage, the hiss of steam loud in the night quiet, and perhaps a passenger or two boards or lights, a figure muffled against the cold hurrying along the platform, a cabin door opening and closing softly down the car, and then the whistle, and the coach stirs and draws out again, and the lights of the city slide back and down toward the water as it runs on along the shore, and the lake opens out again black and immense on the right, and the night closes back over the journey. If you are awake to see it, it is a lovely interlude, the bright station in the sleeping city by the black lake. If you sleep through it, you have lost nothing you needed, only swapped one sweet blackness for another, the dark behind your eyelids for the gloom beyond the glass. Beyond the city, the express runs on along the lake toward its eastern end, where the mountains crowd down to the water and the deep valley opens that will carry the line up into the Alps. The shore grows wilder here, the friendly vineyards giving way to steeper and barer slopes, the mountains pressing closer, the lake narrowing toward the place where the river comes down into it from the heights. The lights grow fewer, the gloom grows deeper. The air that finds its way into the cabin grows colder and cleaner, with the breath of snow and high places in it. And it, which has run easily all night across the lowlands and along the lake, begins now to feel the first of the climb, its note changing, its pace steadying for the long pull ahead, as it leaves the lake behind at last, and turns up into the great valley that leads to the mountains and the tunnel and the frontier. You feel the change through the bed, the new effort in the engine far ahead, the slight tilt of the floor as the line begins to climb, and you understand, half asleep, that the easy part of the night is over, that the train is gathering itself for the great ascent. That ahead in the shadow stand the high Alps and the long climb and the broad passage through the rock, and you pull the blanket a little closer and let the climbing train carry you up into the mountains and the cold and the deep heart of the night. The way south from the lake leads up a great valley, the valley of a young river running down from the high Alps, and the express turns into it and begins by degrees to climb. The walls of the valley draw in and rise on either side, steeper and higher and nearer, until they are no longer hills but mountains, true mountains, their lower slopes black with pine forest, their upper heights pale with snow under whatever moon or stars the night has given, and the river runs white and loud in the bottom of the valley beside the line, swollen with snow melt, catching the carriage's faint light as it tumbles over its boulders. The villages here are few and high and dark, a clutch of wooden houses about a church with a sharp spire, a single lit window, the snow lying in the street. The air that finds its way into the cabin is colder now and thinner, and smells of snow and pine and cold stone. It labours a little against the climb, its beats slowing and deepening, leaning into the grade, working its way up and up into the heart of the mountains, and the great peaks gather close around it on every side, vast and silent and white-shouldered against the night, until it seems the valley must end in a wall of rock and the coach can go no further, that the Alps have closed across the way, and there is no road south but back. And that is exactly where the marvel comes, the thing promised you at the very start of this night, back under the roof of the Gare de Lyon. The valley the carriage climbs toward the tunnel is one of the deepest valleys of the Alps, a deep trench running up into the heart of the mountains, carved long ago by ice, and now floored by the young river that comes down white and cold from the glaciers at its head. By day it is a strange and striking country, the valley floor flat and broad, and given to vineyards and orchards in its lower reaches, for the southern slopes catch the sun, and the wine made here is old and famous, While above the cultivated floor, the mountains rise on either hand in immense bare walls, terrible and grand, their tops hidden in cloud or shining with snow, waterfalls hanging down their faces in long white threads, old castles perched on crags above the villages, the whole valley a corridor of beauty and menace, running up into the high country. By night, which is how you see it, it is mostly a darkness felt rather than seen, the sheer walls of the mountains looming blacker than the sky on either side, the river a pale gleam and a steady roar below the line, the villages few and unlit, the cold deepening as it climbs. The line climbs steadily up the valley, gaining height by patient miles, the engine working hard against the grade, and the country grows wilder and higher and colder as it goes. The vineyards fall away below, the villages grow poorer and more huddled, the houses of dark weathered timber, built low and strong against the snow and the avalanche, gathered close about their churches as if for warmth. The snow begins lying first in patches in the shadows, then thickening until the whole country is white, the fields and the roofs and the trees all snow-laden, the road through each village a trench cut between banks of it, and the express runs on up through the whitening land, its windows throwing their long glow across the snow, climbing toward the head of the valley where the mountains gather across the way. The cold presses at the glass, the murk is immense, and the few wakeful travellers at their windows look out at a country utterly unlike the soft-lit cities far behind, a world of snow and rock and killing cold and enormous silence, through which the warm-lit train climbs steadily on, a thread of light and life winding up into the frozen heart of the mountains. And at the head of the valley, where it seems the climbing must end against the final wall of the Alps, it comes to the town at the northern mouth of the great tunnel, an old town at the meeting of the valleys, a place of crossing and passage since the days of Rome, huddled now under its snow at the foot of the mountains that have stopped every traveller for 1,000 years. Here the line that has climbed all the way up the valley reaches the barrier it cannot climb, the final rampart of the high Alps, standing athwart the way south, the peaks that no railway could ever surmount. A lesser age would have stopped here, or sent its travellers up and over the high pass on foot or by sled, days of cold and danger. But this is the age of the tunnel, and the line does not stop, and ahead in the dark, at the very foot of the mountains, the black mouth of the great bore opens in the rock, and the carriage slows a little, and gathers itself, and runs straight toward that arch of murk and into it, leaving the snow and the stars and the open night behind, plunging into the mountain itself, into the longest tunnel in the world, to pass beneath the Alps that have barred the way since the beginning and come out, more than 12 miles on and many minutes later, in another country and another climate on the far side of the high divide. The mountains, when the coach comes fully among them in the deep of the night, are a sight worth waking for, and if you have slept since the lake you may rouse a little now as the climb steepens and the air sharpens, and lift the curtain, and look out at one of the grandest things in all of Europe seen at its most secret hour. For the high Alps by night, under a moon, are not like the Alps of the picture postcards, the bright blue and white playground of the summer traveller. They are vast and dark and silent and faintly terrible, the great peaks standing up all around the climbing train, black where their flanks are bare rock and pine, and above where the snow begins, glimmering a cold and ghostly white under the moon, the snowfields and the glaciers catching the moonlight and giving it back, the highest summits pale and remote against a sky thick with stars, more stars than you ever see in the Low Countries, for the air up here is thin and clear and cold, and the heavens blaze in it. It winds along the side of the valley, far below the peaks, a tiny lit thing creeping through an immensity of lightless mountain, and through your window you look up and up at the black walls rising sheer above you, and out over gulfs of darkness where the valley falls away, and the scale of it, the silence and the size and the cold indifference of the mountains, presses in upon you even through the lit glass. And yet you are warm. That is the whole strange wonder of the moment, and it is worth savouring. Out there, a few feet beyond the glass, is a wilderness that would kill you in a night. The high, bitter Alps in winter, the snow and the rock and the killing frost. A wilderness where no one lives and few can go, beautiful and lethal under the moon. And here you lie, on the other side of a pane of glass, in a warm bed, beneath a soft blanket, in a pocket of light and heat, watching that lethal beauty slide by as safely and as comfortably as if it were a painting on a wall. The express carries its little bubble of warmth and civilization straight through the heart of the winter mountains, untouched by them, and you ride within it, looking out at the terrible cold splendor from a nest of comfort, and the contrast is almost the finest thing in the journey. The safe, warm human pocket flying through the vast, cold, inhuman dark, the lamplight and the linen and the snow peaks, and the stars all present at once, divided only by a thin sheet of glass. There are few places a person can be so snug and so close to such grandeur at the same time, and the night train through the Alps is one of them. The little towns of the high valley slide by as it climbs, and they too are touched with the strangeness of the hour. A cluster of unlit wooden houses, steep-roofed against the snow, gathered about a church with a needle spire, the snow lying deep and blue in the single street, a lamp burning at a corner, perhaps one lit window, where someone is awake in the frozen mountain night, and then gone, swallowed back into the dimness as the train climbs on. These are old places, these mountain villages that lived for centuries, cut off half the year by the snow, hard and isolated and self-reliant, and the railway when it came was a marvel and a lifeline to them. The iron road that kept the valley open through the winter, that brought the world to their doorstep and a way out to it. The blue cars does not stop for them. It climbs past them in the night, its lit windows throwing a brief glow across the snow, a glimpse to any wakeful villager of another life passing through the lit rich world of the travellers bound for the south, here and gone in the mountain dark. And the express climbs on, up and up toward the head of the valley, toward the place where the mountains close across the way, and the only road on is the one bored through the rock, climbing through the cold, and the moonlight and the blazing stars toward the great tunnel and the frontier hidden in the dark heart of the Alps. The tunnel you are about to pass through has its own story, and it is worth the telling, for it is one of the supreme feats of engineering of the age, and it cost a great deal to make. The mountains you have climbed into all night, the high wall of the Alps that stands across the way south, was for the whole of history a near impassable barrier, crossed only by a few high passes that the snow closed for half the year. The traveller from the north, toiling up on foot or by mule to the hospice at the top, and down the long descent on the other side, days of hard and dangerous going to cross from one country to the next. The pass above the very tunnel you will ride through was an old one, used since the days of Rome, improved into a road by a famous emperor of the French, not much more than a century ago, but a road over the top of the Alps is at the mercy of the mountains, buried in snow in winter, swept by avalanche, and the men of the railway age, who did not like to be told that anything was impassable, looked at that wall of rock and resolved to go not over it, but straight through it, at the bottom, in a level line bored clean through the base of the mountains from the one side to the other. It was begun a little before the turn of the century, and it took some 7 years to complete, and it was among the hardest things men had ever tried to do. They drove the tunnel from both ends at once, a Swiss team boring south from the town at the northern foot of the mountains, and an Italian team boring north from the valley on the southern side, the two of them aiming to meet far under the heart of the range miles deep, with only their instruments to keep them true. And meet they did, very nearly exactly, after years of digging through the blackness. The deeper they went, the worse it became. The weight of the mountain overhead, thousands of feet of solid rock, pressed on the workings with a force that crushed the timber props and squeezed the very rock of the walls inward. The heat grew fierce as they went deeper, the bare rock hot to the hand, the air thick and stifling, and then in places the mountain betrayed them with water, springs of scalding water bursting out of the rock at the temperature very nearly of a hot bath, flooding the workings, so that men laboured half drowned in hot water in the choking dark miles inside the mountain. They brought in huge machines to drill the rock and powerful fans to drive air down to the workings and streams of cold water to fight the heat, and still it was brutal and dangerous work, and men died at it, scores of them, crushed and drowned and broken in the gloom, so that the tunnel, when it was finished, had been bought with their lives as well as their labour. But finished it was, and opened with much ceremony, the king of the one country and the president of the other meeting in celebration, and it stood then and stands tonight as the longest railway tunnel in all the world, more than 12 miles of bored passage beneath the mountains, the lowest and most direct way through the whole great barrier of the Alps. And what it did, when it opened, was to change the map of Europe, for it joined the north and the south of the continent as they had never been joined before, opening a direct and level road for the railways from France and the lands beyond straight through to Italy and the warm south. And it was this tunnel, more than anything, that made possible the very journey you are taking tonight. The run of the blue train from Paris down through Switzerland and under the Alps and on toward the east by the southern road. Before the tunnel, the great express to the east had to go the long way round through the German lands and the passes to the north and east, a route that the troubles of the world could close. The tunnel gave the company a new way, a southern way, under the mountains and through Italy, and across to the Balkans and on to Constantinople, safer and more direct, and they named their train for it, the Simplon Orient Express, after the mountain and the tunnel that had opened the road. So when you run into that black portal in the small hours and feel the mountain close over you, remember that you are passing through one of the hardest won passages on the earth, a road bought with 7 years of labour and the lives of brave men, blasted and drilled and drowned and sweated out of the living rock beneath the highest mountains of Europe, so that travellers ever after might pass through the Alps in their sleep, rocked in a warm bed, and never know, unless someone tells them, what it cost to open the way. And Omstay, but the carriage does not stop, and it does not turn back, and it does not climb over the mountains, for no railway could climb a wall like that. It goes through them. There ahead, where the valley closes and the mountains stand across the way, a black arch opens in the foot of the rock, a portal of stone, and it runs straight toward it and into it, and the night and the stars and the white peaks are snatched away all at once, and there is only darkness, a roaring enclosed darkness, the sound of the wheels flung back hard from close walls of rock on every side, and you understand, lying in your bed in the shadow, that you have entered the tunnel, the great Simplon Tunnel, the longest railway tunnel in the world, bored straight through the base of the Alps from one country to the other, more than 12 miles of it, a passage hacked and blasted through the living heart of the mountains by an army of men over years of labour, deep beneath thousands of feet of solid rock, beneath the glaciers and the snowfields and the high silent peaks, a tunnel so long and so deep that the rock above it presses down with such weight and such heat that springs of hot water burst into the workings as it was dug. The coach runs into the mountain and is swallowed, and for long minutes there is nothing but the blackness and the roar, the carriage boring through the rock with the whole mass of the Alps piled overhead, the lamps of the corridor the only light in all that buried blackness, and you lie in your bed in your small lit cabin and feel yourself carried clean through the inside of a mountain range in the dead of night, which is a thing no human being could do or dream of doing in any age before this one. And then, as suddenly as it took you, the mountain gives you up. The roar falls away, the close walls fly back, and it bursts out of the southern portal into the open night again, and the air that comes in at the window is different, softer, no longer the hard, cold air of the high north, but something milder with a new scent on it. And you understand that you have come out the other side, that the tunnel has carried you under the Alps and through the frontier in their depths, and that you are in Italy now, on the southern side of the Great Divide, with the mountains falling away behind you toward the warm south. The country here is gentler, the slopes terraced, the valleys opening out, and somewhere below in the dark are the famous lakes of the north of Italy, long fingers of dark water reaching up into the foot of the mountains, with their little towns along the shore, and their villas and their gardens sleeping in the night. The worst of the climb is over. The express runs more easily now, downhill, southward, into a softer and a lower land, and the night, which has carried you all this way, is beginning, just beginning, far off to the east beyond the mountains, to think about its ending. The black of the sky thinning by the smallest degree toward the grey that comes before the dawn. On the southern side of the mountains, when it has come out of the tunnel into Italy, the world is gentler, and if the night is far enough gone, you may see the first of it in the growing light, for the dawn comes up over a country utterly unlike the harsh high north you climbed through in the murk. The carriage comes down out of the mountains by a winding descent, and the slopes that rise on either flank are no longer black pine and bare rock, but terraced and cultivated. Vines and chestnuts and little fields rested from the hillside. The houses no longer the steep black timber of the high valleys, but stone, washed in pale colours with shallow roofs of curved tile. And there is a softness in the air that comes in at the window, a mildness, a smell of damp earth and green things and wood smoke that is the smell of the south of Italy, of the southern lands the whole journey has been pointed toward. You have crossed in a single night from the north of Europe to the south, from the cold to the mild, from one whole world to another, and the change announces itself in the light and the air and the shape of the houses as the coach comes down toward the plains, and below, as it descends, lie the lakes, the famous lakes of the north of Italy, long deep fingers of dark water reaching up into the feet of the mountains, and in the first grey light of the dawn they are a sight to still the heart. The express runs along the shore of one of them, perhaps, or crosses the valley above it, and you look down on a sheet of water lying utterly calm in the windless dawn, steel grey, and then, as the light grows, faintly silver, faintly blue, mist lying on it in long, soft banks, and along its shores the little towns, pale stone climbing the hillsides, a church tower, a harbour with small boats, the villas of the wealthy set among their gardens of cypress and palm and flower, gardens that run down to the water's edge, terraces and balustrades and stone steps going down into the lake. These are old places of pleasure and beauty, the Italian lakes, where the rich have come for centuries to take the soft air and the lovely views. And in the hush of dawn, with the mist on the water and the first light on the mountains behind, they have a beauty that seems almost too much, a dreamlike loveliness, the water still as glass, the gardens silent, the scene held in the pearl-grey light of the day not yet begun. It runs past it all, down along the shore, and you watch from your warm bed as the lakes and the gardens and the pale towns slide by in the growing light, the soft, beautiful south unrolling beneath you after the hard splendour of the night mountains. But you need not stay awake for the dawn, and perhaps you should not, for there will be other mornings, and the point of this night has been your rest. The coming of the light over the lakes is there, if you wish it, a loveliness to drift through half sleeping, the grey turning to pearl, and the pearl to rose on the far peaks, the mist lifting from the water, a fisherman pushing out from a stone quay, the first smoke rising from the towns. Or you may let the curtain fall and turn your face to the pillow and sleep on through all of it, secure that the train is carrying you safely down into the gentle south, that there is nothing you must see and nothing you must do, that the beauty will be there whether you watch it or not, and your rest is the better gift tonight. Either way, the express runs on, down out of the mountains, along the dawn-grey lakes, into the soft Italian morning, carrying you onward as gently as it has carried you all night, and whether you watch the light come up over the water or sleep through it warm beneath your blanket, you are exactly where you should be, held safe in the blue train at the soft southern end of the night, with the mountains crossed behind you, and the gentle country opening ahead, and the long, lovely journey drawing toward its close. There is a thought worth holding, as you lie in the dimness being carried through the night, about why this kind of travel works on the soul the way it does, why the night train has such a hold on the imagination and gives such a particular peace. For it is not only the comfort and the luxury, though those are real, it is something deeper, something about being carried in the dark while you sleep. In the ordinary run of life, you are always the one who must act, who must decide and manage and steer, who must keep hold of the day and drive it forward, and the weight of that, the ceaseless small effort of being in charge of your own life, is heavier than we usually notice, until it is lifted, and the night express lifts it. The moment you lie down in that rocking bed, you hand over the whole business of getting anywhere to the carriage and the men who run it. You are not steering, you are not deciding. You are not responsible for so much as a single yard of the journey. You have become for one night pure cargo, precious cargo, carried tenderly through the dark by others toward a morning you do not have to lift a finger to bring about, and there is a profound release in that surrender, a letting go that goes all the way down, the relief of the one who is usually in charge being, for once, wholly and safely taken care of. And there is the blackness itself, and the motion, working their old magic on the body. We are creatures who were made, across long ages, to be soothed by certain things, by warmth, by rhythmic motion, by the sense of being safely enclosed while the shadow and the cold are shut outside, and the night train gives all of these at once, in concentrated form, the warmth of the cabin, the rhythmic rocking of the wheels, the oldest lullaby there is, the snug enclosure of the small room, the curtain drawn, the lamp low, the dark and the cold, and the vast country safely beyond the glass, the deep animal sense of being in motion, going somewhere, and yet at rest, which answers something restless in us that is soothed by travel, as by almost nothing else. All of it together speaks to the body in a language older than words, and the body answers. The breathing slowing, the muscles loosening, the racing mind at last consenting to be still, and sleep comes. The deep, sweet sleep that so many travellers have sworn is the best of their lives, the sleep of the rocked and the carried and the safely held. And there is beneath even that the sweet truth that for this one night you have escaped, you have stepped clean out of your own life and its troubles, and are suspended between places, between days, between the person you were when you boarded and the person you will be when you arrive, in a kind of blessed parenthesis where none of it can reach you. The telephone cannot ring here. No one can find you here. The cares that waited for you in the city you left cannot follow you onto the blue cars, and the cares that wait in the city ahead cannot reach back to trouble you yet. You are nowhere, deliciously nowhere, in the dark between the two, carried smoothly through a country you cannot see, accountable to no one, expected nowhere until morning. Free as you are, almost never free in the waking managed daylight world. It is one of the last refuges, the night train, one of the few places left where a person may be truly and completely out of reach, unfindable, unburdened, suspended in the gloom with nothing to do but sleep. And you have it now this night, this refuge, this blessed parenthesis between your days, and the wisest thing you can do with it, the thing the whole journey is built to let you do, is to give yourself over to it entirely, to stop holding on, to let the warm murk and the steady wheels carry you down into the deepest and the sweetest rest, while the blue train bears you on through the night toward a morning that will come, all on its own, without the least help from you. Toward the end of the night, before the full day has come, there is a gentle ritual aboard the sleeping car that marks the turn from night to morning, and it is one of the sweetest small moments of the whole journey, though you may be too deep asleep to want it tonight. The conductor, who has kept his watch all night in the dim corridor, begins as the sky outside starts to pale, to move softly along the car, tapping at the doors of those who have asked to be wakened, bringing the early tea or coffee. There comes a soft knock at your door, and his low voice, and then he enters with a small tray, a pot of tea or coffee, a cup, a little milk and sugar, perhaps a roll or a biscuit, and sets it on the folding table by your bed, and draws the curtain back a little on the growing light, and tells you quietly where it has reached and how long until your station, and withdraws. And you sit up in the snug, rumpled bed, in the grey light of the dawn, with the hot cup in your hands and the steam rising, and look out at the new country the night has carried you into. And there are few more pleasant ways to come back into the waking world than this, propped on your pillow with your tea, watching a strange land brighten beyond the glass, the night's long sleep behind you, and a new place and a new day ahead. But you need not take the early tea, and tonight, this once, perhaps you should not, for there is no station you must rise for, no engagement, no need to surface before you are ready. You may sleep on, through the dawn and the waking ritual, and the first hours of the morning, sleep as late as your body wishes, while the coach carries you gently on through the brightening south, and wake only when sleep itself releases you, slowly, in your own time, to find the sun well up and the warm country streaming past and the whole soft morning waiting. That, after all, is the deepest luxury of the night express, not the dinner or the marquetry or the service, but this, that you may give yourself wholly to sleep and stay in it, as long as you like, carried all the while, so that your only task is to rest, and go on resting until you are done. The carriage asks nothing of you. The morning will wait. The country will still be there, lovely, when you wake. And so you may let the early tea go by, and turn your face from the paling window, and draw the blanket up, and sink back down into the last sweet reaches of sleep, while the blue train runs on through the dawn with its sleeping cargo, in no more hurry than you are, carrying you softly toward whatever hour you choose to wake. For now, though, the night is not quite over, and you are not quite at the end of it. So let yourself have the last of it. Let the bed rock you. Let the wheels sing their long, steady song below. Let the soft dark of the cabin close gently around you. There is no more to see tonight, and no more to do. And the one task the whole journey has been built to give you is the easiest in the world, which is simply to let go. Loosen your hold on the day behind and the morning ahead, and feel how little either of them asks of you just now. The blue train has you, and it will not let you fall. It is carrying you, surely and softly, exactly where you need to go, and it will set you down with the dawn rested and whole in a gentler country than the one you left. You need not wait for that, and you need not watch for it. You need only sink now by slow degrees the way a leaf settles through still water, down past the last of your waking and into sleep, and let the train carry the rest of the way for you. Let me gather the night together for you now, as it lies behind and around and ahead of you, so that you may hold it all at once in the drowsy warmth of your mind as you sink towards sleep. Think of where you began this evening, in the bright lit city, among the crowds and the cafes and the cold December streets, and of how you came down to the grand station beneath its golden clock, and walked to the platform in the steam and the lamplight, and looked at the long rake of blue and gold cars waiting in the shadow, and were handed aboard by the calm man in his gold-trimmed coat. Think of the warm wooden corridor closing around you, and the small clever cabin that was yours, and the gentle slide of the platform as the express pulled out, and the lights of Paris falling away into the night. Think of the long walk down the swaying train to the glowing restaurant car, the lalique shining along the walls, the white cloths and the silver and the lamps, the slow stately dinner with the dark country flying past the glass, the wine, the coffee, the murmur of the strangers all bound east together through the night. And think of all that you have passed through in the dark since, the country of France unrolling black and sleeping beneath the stars, the far lights of farms and villages swinging by, the frontier crossed in your sleep by the quiet work of the conductor, the great lake lying still and immense with its necklace of doubled lights, the climb up the wild valley into the mountains, the snow and the cold and the blazing stars, the high black peaks standing guard, and then the great tunnel, the long unlit passage bored through the heart of the Alps, and the bursting out on the far side into the softer air of the south, Italy opening below, the lakes lying silver in the first grey light, the whole hard splendour of the mountain night giving way to the gentle morning country. All of it the long lovely passage of the night from the bright city to the soft south gathered now behind you, crossed, accomplished, while you did nothing at all but lie here warm and rocking, and let it carry you through it. That is the gift of the night and of the carriage, and it is a rare and precious one, that you have travelled so far, through so much beauty and so much murk, across frontiers and mountains and a whole great reach of the sleeping world, and it has cost you nothing but your willingness to lie still and be carried. You have crossed a continent's worth of night in perfect comfort and perfect safety, fed and warmed and watched over, asking nothing of yourself, doing not a thing, only resting, while the world and its mountains and its frontiers slid past unseen, and the patient unseen hands at the head of the coach, and along its corridors carried you gently on, and there is naught left now but the last of it, the soft descent through the morning country, the final reaches of the journey, which will unfold whether you wake for them or not, and which you may now, with all of the hard night safely behind you, let go of entirely, and give yourself at last to the deepest sleep of all, knowing the mountains are crossed, the frontier past, the worst of the climb behind, and the blue train running easy now and downhill into the soft south and the morning, carrying you the last gentle miles toward whatever hour you choose to wake. There is one more thing the night train gives at the very end that is worth holding in your mind, even though tonight you need not rise for it, and that is the strange sweet feeling of arrival, of stepping down at last into the morning of a country you went to sleep far away from. Imagine it, drowsily, as a thing that lies ahead rather than a task you must do, it slowing at last toward its journey's end, the long run of the night accomplished, the brakes sighing, the platform of a southern city gliding up alongside the window in the clear morning light. The conductor has brought your tea and folded away your bed and set the cabin to rights, and your trunk is strapped and waiting, and you stand in the corridor by the door in your travelling clothes looking out at the new country, the new light, the porters waiting along the platform, the unfamiliar uniforms, the sound of a language not the one you fell asleep among, and then the express stops, and the door is opened, and you step down, and the firm, still ground of the platform comes up to meet your feet after the long night of motion, and you stand a moment swaying very slightly, your body still rocking to a rhythm that has stopped, its motion still in you though the train is still. It is a curious sensation, that first standing on solid ground after a night on the rails, the body still expecting the sway that is no longer there, the world seeming for a moment too still, too fixed, as the deck of a ship seems when you first come ashore. And there is a curious doubleness to the arrival too, a sense of having come impossibly far while doing nothing at all. Only last evening you were in the bright cold city in the north, among its lamps and crowds, and you lay down in your bed and slept. And now here you are, stepping down into the warm, bright morning of a southern land, hundreds of miles away, over mountains and frontiers, and you crossed the vast distance, unconscious, dreaming, doing nothing, and it is hard, standing on the strange platform in the new light, quite to believe that the night has carried you so far. The mind has not kept pace with the body's journey. You went to sleep in one world and woke in another, and the in-between, the great dark passage of the night, the country and the mountains and the tunnel, all of it happened while you were not there to see it, so that the arrival has a dreamlike quality, the quality of a thing accomplished by magic rather than by effort, which in a sense it was. And there is, beneath the strangeness, a deep and quiet satisfaction, the satisfaction of the journey well made, the distance crossed in comfort and in style, the night spent not in weariness but in rest, so that you step down not haggard and aching, as the traveller of an earlier age would have, but refreshed, rested, ready, the journey having given you back to yourself, renewed rather than worn. You have been carried across a continent in your sleep, and set down whole and rested in the morning of a new place, and all of it, the dinner and the wine and the marquetry and the rocking bed and the deep sweet sleep and the mountains crossed in the dark, lies behind you now as a thing accomplished and a thing to remember. One of those journeys that stays in the mind for a lifetime, that surfaces unbidden years later at a chance scent or sound, and brings the golden night flooding back. But all of that is for the morning, and the morning can wait, and you need not rise for it tonight. Tonight you are still aboard, still in the warm dimness, still rocking gently east through the night with the mountains yet to come, and the long sleep yet to be slept. And the arrival, the stepping down, the bright strange morning, is only a sweet certainty waiting at the far end of the dark, a thing you may drift toward now without the smallest effort, carried by the patient train through the night, toward a morning that will come whole and bright and rested, all on its own, whenever you are ready to meet it. But you need not wait for the dawn, and you should not, for the whole purpose of this night has been to carry you gently down into sleep, and you are nearly there now. You have dined, and crossed a continent's worth of blackness, and passed a frontier in your sleep, and run beneath the roof of the Alps, through the longest tunnel in the world, and now you lie warm in your bed in the soft Italian night with the mountains falling away behind, and the wheels still keeping their slow, steady beat below, and there is nothing left to do, nothing left to see that cannot be missed. Nowhere you need to be but here, in this rocking bed, in this small glowing room, being carried south through the last of the blackness. Let the express do the rest. Let it rock you the way it has rocked 100,000 travellers before you, kings and adventurers and writers and lovers and ordinary fortunate souls, all of them carried through this same dark toward this same dawn, all of them given for one night, the rare deep peace of being wholly looked after and wholly at rest, while the country slid by unseen outside. The lamp glows low, the blanket is warm, the mountains stand guard behind you in the night, and the most famous train in the world runs on beneath you, south and ever south, carrying you down into sleep as gently as it carries you toward the morning. Before you let the night take you all the way down, let me say one last quiet thing, the way I said the first. If riding this old train through the gloom has been a good way to set your own day down and leave it behind you, then I am glad of it, and there will be other journeys to other times and other countries whenever you should care to take them, and you will always be welcome to come along. That is all. There is nothing further to do tonight, and nowhere further you need to go. The dinner is long over, and the cars are dark and quiet. The last of the diners gone to their beds. The conductor keeping his patient watch in the dim corridor while his passengers sleep. The mountains are behind you. The soft south lies ahead, and the blue train runs on through the last of the night with its lamps burning low, carrying you onward as it has carried so many, while you sink down at last into the deep, sweet sleep that only a rocking bed and a steady beat and a long night's journey can give. So let the picture of it stay with you as you drift away. The midnight blue cars lettered in, gold, running quiet through the gloom. The lalique glass glowing softly in the empty dining car. The cloths laid ready for a morning you need not wake for. The marquetry flowers gleaming in the dim corridor. The mountains falling away behind, white and silent under the last of the stars. The frontier passed, the tunnel run, the long dark country crossed, all of it behind you now and below you and gathered safely into the night. You have been carried as far as you need to go. The journey is yours, and it was a lovely one, and you may rest now. Sleep well. Stay warm. Be kind to the people in your house. And I will see you in the next one. Good night.